Morning, everybody. Good morning. Yes, I'm giving you 2 minutes to settle down, and then we will start. We will start. It's you and Asmus. You are the people I'm waiting for. Because I fear you, I didn't mention you by name. Welcome, everybody, to the National Consultative Forum on Post-Elections Accountability. My name is Esther Ofei Abwaji. I have the singular privilege of moderating today's event. This is the last time you're going to see me standing at this podium, because this is supposed to be a safe space for women, and my everywhere is paining me. So I'm going to sit down and moderate you from my vantage point. I just needed you to see me, and to say that by the grace of God, we are all well, and we have gathered here in the interest of our nation, and we shall see this process through to a good and successful and satisfying end for all of us. Great. Now, what will really make me happy before I take my seat is that when you are shooting these things and the inner circle is looking kind of empty, it doesn't augur well. So I want to crave the indulgence of all the very kind people who are going to migrate to the inner circle for me. Any volunteers? Levlin, I volunteered you, migrate. Let me start mentioning names. Migrate. Oh, Farisa, yes, who else is migrating? Okay. Right. So I'm going to manage you from my vantage point over here. Right. Okay. The fact that I'm sitting doesn't mean I can't see you. I can see everybody and everything. So please, don't think I can't see you and everything. I still have a few seats left. Good. Well done, well done, well done. Right, if I can get one more person and then, okay, actually I should give you some elbow room. So I think I will manage with what we have. Right, okay, yes. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. I believe that everybody has a program. Does everybody have an agenda? So what we're going to do today is that there's going to be the opening formalities, and then unfortunately, or fortunately for us, we were not able to secure the participation of the Electoral Commission. I think at the very last minute, they indicated that they have some constraints. But we are talking about Ghana, and we all know about Ghana. We know how we feel about Ghana. So we will manage nicely in their absence, and we shall send the results of our discussion to them to add to what they are doing. So we shall zip quickly into the panel discussion on the reflections of Ghana's 2024 elections. And then having done that, we'll have a bit of a break to stretch and do what it is that people do. And then we'll come and have something called a fireside chat I can't see the fire yet, but after the tea break, I promise you I'll get you a fire of sorts and bring these people to come and sit around it. And then around 1 o'clock, I'm hoping that we would have spoken what we want to speak. We'll bring it to a very nice end, and then Cynthia will close us, and we shall have a brilliant lunch together. Does this sound like something you want to spend your day doing? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Great. Right. So what I'm going to do right now, with your kind permission, is that I'm going to pass a microphone around. I know some people. I don't know some people. So I'm going to pass a microphone around. We'll get to know who's here. And anything in your head, anything going through your head about the last elections and your observations and what, anything you want to say to this house that you can't understand. As I was riding through Kaswa last week, I said, hey, how are Kunson's kingdom? You know, anything that's going through your mind at all about the last elections, you share with us. So we can start with the inner ring, or should we do the outer ring? Okay, we'll do that. Hey, why is there such consensus about the outer ring? Right, okay. So, don't frighten people here. So what we'll do is that just who you are, who the organization you are affiliated with, and anything in your mind. If it's an expectation for this meeting, fair enough. If it's an observation on the elections, fair enough. Anything pertaining to today's meeting that you want to share with us. Right, thank you. Great, go ahead.
Good morning.
Is the mic working? Shall I give you this?
Okay, I'll just, I just need to be better with the mic. Good morning. My name is Elsa Mweli Rondeau. I am the political counselor at the High Commission of Canada. I did not plan on speaking first this morning. I'm really here to listen. Maybe thoughts about the election. So, of course, we followed very closely from the Canadian High Commission. We also had observer teams go in 5 regions and report back on the electoral process. I think what struck me as a Canadian, relatively new in Ghana, is how seriously Ghanaians take the electoral process.
Just a second. Please, I really want to hear only her voice at this point. Thank you.
And how active, engaged civil society is, how precious democracy is to Ghanaians. But of course, there's really a need to make sure that women have their voices heard and their concerns addressed much better in Ghana. And so we're here to support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Jacob Teta Huno, and I work with the Ghana Integrity Initiative, now Transparency International Ghana. My observation has to do with the fact that civil society interest in monitoring elections took us a notch higher from CDD, from GI, GACC, and other partners, so that indeed we want to make sure things are done right. Vote buying, campaign spending, and electoral corruptions are things that we want to stem out of our election. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vera Kakari-Bediako from the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. For me, I realized that the situation rooms had gone a bit higher in the previous elections than it used to be. Most of the CSOs and other organizations were having their own situation rooms to monitor what was going on, and also the rigorous campaigns by all the political parties is what I took notice of. Thank you.
Well done. Yes.
Good morning. My name is Becky Anyunamahaji, and I work with the Affirmative Action Law Coalition. I think I'll get a chance later to give my reflections on the election, so I'll skip that. But happy to meet everyone. I hope we have a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I'm Esina Mahiandome. I work with Plan International Ghana. Do I say it's an observation? Maybe a concern.
Okay.
About the interesting results that came out, what necessitated all that, what are we not doing right as NGOs that are fighting for the right of women participation in decision making, among others. So it's just a concern. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Okay, my name is Eunice Dampama Mensah, and I'm with the Ghana News Agency. So what I observed was the alleged secret stamp printing of ballot papers for some candidates. But then it seems we didn't really get any explanations on that, whether it was true or untrue. So I think maybe next time the Electoral Commission and concerned bodies can do something better, to clear the air about those allegations. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Right.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, my name is Nanecha Abuaji with Bullet TV. So I covered Ablikuma North constituency, and it was hell. Journalists, our lives were at risk because of some circumstances between the two contestants. And as it stands now, the case is still in court. So I don't want to say much on that, it's in court, but it was terrifying.
Yeah.
And our safety was at risk. Despite the security presence,
Yes.
we were still attacked. The electorate were coming inside the collation center, even preventing some electoral commissioners from entering, presenting the pink sheet and things. It was destroyed, and it was so scary. So maybe moving forward, there should be some policies in place to protect us. As if I say us, I'm talking about journalists, electoral commission, people involved in conducting election in the country, even the observers, for our safety reasons. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amarchan. This is amazing. It's interesting. Ablekuma North, 2 women stood. Yes. Yes, please. Next person.
Good morning. My name is Rebecca Kweku from the Daily Graphic.
Hi, Rebecca.
Yeah. What I would want to talk about is how Ghanaians massively endorsed a political party with a female vice presidential candidate. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you. Yes, next, please.
Good morning. I'm Francisca Asari from the Children and Youth in Broadcasting, Curious Minds. My observation was that the fact that mostly the youth initially said they weren't going to vote and they wouldn't involve themselves in the election, but then it turned out they were really, really involved in it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, next, please.
So my name is Roger Kamsik, PhD. I work with Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. My observation is that throughout the election or during the election, I realized that most of our farmers were not actually participating. They had their own reservation because they feel anytime they vote for one particular party, the policies they really do doesn't favor them. So this is what I really observed. So because that the turnout in those areas were very low.
Thank you very much. The disenchantment of our farmers. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am Beauty Emefanate, the Executive Secretary for the Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. My observation and expectation put it together has to do with our excitement with the passage of the Affirmative Action Bill before the elections, and how we had looked forward to seeing it reflected in not just the election results, but also in the appointments of officers after the election, and some of the disappointing outcomes, particularly the composition of cabinets and having only 2 women, when in the year of the implementation of Affirmative Action Bill was a little disappointing, to say the least.
Thank you, Beauty. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay, so my name is Sweeney Asma, and I'm from IDEC. Okay, so for my reflection, one thing I realized from this election is that initially or in past elections, for the number of spoiled ballots, it was more. But in this 2024 election, there has really been a drastic reduction. It used to be 2.8% of the ballots, but in the past election was 0.363, which I think is very encouraging. Another thing I realized in the past election was that for violence, electoral violence, in past elections, they were before elections. It was maybe during registration and all this, before election campaign. That's when you see the electoral violence. But for the 2024 election, you realize that before the election, there wasn't really violence. But after the elections, during coalition, that's where the violence was really prevalent. And that's something that was very different. Another thing too was, from IDEC's observation, we were able to realize some things and engage the relevant stakeholders, and was able to help to bring about peace. And another thing I really think was very remarkable was the fact that the presidential candidates for the NPP delivered a concession speech prior to even the election, the EC announcing the winner of the election. I think it was very good because it helped to douse the tension in the country. So those are my thoughts on my reflection. And I'm expecting to really learn from the stakeholders here and then get their perspective on what happened during the election, or what they learned and how it can also help in post-election and transition arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was very rich. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
I'm Christiana Gorman from the Ministry of Ministry of Gender. Please, I'd like to skip my observation for now.
Why?
Because most of what I wanted to say had already been said.
Oh, my come from a small town called Toprema. And it's the women class people, when they don't want to say their Bible verses, they say, "Weya kamedie." So please repackage yours and bring it. Even if you are just delighted to be here, even if you didn't vote, even if you voted, just say something.
I just wanted to say that this last year's elections was peaceful.
Okay.
As compared to the other years.
Okay. All right. So the peacefulness of the last elections. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Gilbert Asamoah Ayebing, and I'm from Ghana Federation of Disability Organization, that's GFD.
Fabulous.
And
yes.
My observation for the election has to do with the vice candidate for the NDC. She being a woman and how she managed to carry the issues of women from the start of the campaign till the end. And we can say that the massive victory that their political party garnered or got can be a true reflection of how women in this country, being more than the men, truly believed that their issues were being identified and raised by her. So that's my observation and what I would like to say for now. Thank you.
Okay, that's a valid observation. Yes, please go ahead. Maybe some people may not, will need further explanation. Let me put it that way. Yes, please. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm Ifa Odamiama,
a female vice president.
Two colleagues there said, so I'm also very excited to
to see a female vice president, and I know that the expectation is so great. So probably I'll just use this opportunity to wish her a speedy recovery, because we all look up to her, and we hope that she really make the, let me say, the women community proud. I also want to say that even though the election was transparent, I thought the process was a bit cumbersome. Cumbersome because of the introduction of the regional coalition. So I thought that made it more, complex, because at some point we had gotten a lot of, we had enough constituencies to declare the winner, but because of that introduction of the regional coalition, it made it difficult or impossible for the EC chair to declare, even when it was so obvious. And that could have been a potential source of conflict, because people had an expectation and it was quite clear who the winner was. So I don't know what can be done, going forward, but I hope that something can be done so that we can maintain the peace that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, moving right along.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Ama Opondria, also from the University of Ghana. I think what I learned from this last election is the fact that Ghanaians are quiet. They might not talk, but you can't be complacent. You might make a lot of noise and spend a lot of money, but now the electorate is different from what it was 20 years ago. Ghanaians will do what Ghanaians want to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's rich. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Faustina Obeng Adoma from the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. I think, yes. So I had two observations that have been mentioned, but maybe from a nuanced perspective.
Yes.
So I think one observation was how so many Ghanaians like myself in the lead up to the election felt like we were presented with a choiceless choice, and so we were not going to vote, but some way, somehow, we all queued and voted. And I think the second observation is, I think it was mentioned by someone about the flag bearer of the MPP making the concession speech early, which calmed a lot of nerves, but on the other side also led to a lot of violence, at least in my constituency. That speech was fundamentally the reason why people thought their parliamentary candidate had won. And so, yeah, I think that was an observation that was quite shocking, how we take a speech from a presidential side to mean that this is a win for parliamentary candidates, and the subsequent violence that we saw from that.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Livlin Kunedu Asiedu, and I work with the Ghana CSO's platform on SDGs. My observation from the elections was, on the election day, I voted early. From the voting center, there were no queues, and the whole process was very well organized. It was orderly. People went in and out without the usual queues and chaos. And for me, it was a highlight of the election. And I went to my hairdresser to fix my hair that day, and she didn't go out to vote. Another client came in, and in listening to them, the client had mentioned that the previous election, she had gone to Community 8 to go and vote, and there were gunshots. They had to lie on the floor. That was in 2020, and her clothes got torn, and she was plumpy. She had to roll on the floor, and the trauma of that experience will not let her go out to vote. And for the hairdresser herself, she believed that her party was not going to win anyway, and so she wasn't going to vote. And the other thing that interests me most was when the president-elect made his speech, the music, I'm not too much fan of, is it reggae? He let them sing the song, One Love, One La La La. That song, I felt it was also very unifying and calming. At least it didn't insult the opposition, and for me it was good. Thank you.
Thank you. Interesting. Yes.
My name is Esther, representing Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy, SEGENSA. I think my observation I observe a general voter apathy compared to previous elections, and I see that comparing the figures that turn out, comparing it to previous elections, we can all, attest to the fact that a whole lot of people didn't go out to vote for some reason, as Madam mentioned. And so, moving forward, I hope that the political parties or the party in power or the oppositions can do something about that, so that I, for one, didn't go out to vote. My husband didn't go out to vote, and there are several family members that I know also didn't go out to vote.
See you, my sister. I moved from my area, and I couldn't transfer my votes on time, actually. There's something in this life called you go explain tire. Okay, go ahead, please. Yes, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Frank Ousu Frimpong, representing Ghana Union Movement.
Good.
Interestingly, my observation is why I'm here this morning. And with the given opportunity, I think I will share my views on that. Thank you.
Ghana Union Movement.
Yes, please.
It was good to see you. Yeah, moving right along. Yes.
Good morning.
Yes.
My name is Tiflo Sasari Boaf. I'm from GH1, please. My observation with this year's election is it was my first time covering an election. And I'm always amazed when people say our election is peaceful and we see pockets of violence. Then I ask myself, then what goes on in other countries then? But I believe the 6 people who died during our election, there's really no accountability being held. And I'm not hearing the family to pushing for, because we don't have to, there's no reason to go to vote and lose your life. So I believe we should keep on hammering it and make sure that our next election, we have a no-death election. If there will be violence, we can solve it, but no one should lose his life going to the polls to vote.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. Yes, please.
Thank you. I am Samuel Tete Odum Jr. from FIDA Ghana. A growing concern from FIDA Ghana during the election is how some of our politicians try to entice the ordinary Ghanaian, especially our mothers at the various markets, with foodstuffs and money to try and win their favor during the voting procedures. And also, personally, I think our elections are peaceful, but it only becomes violent when some of our politicians try to entice the party faithfuls to do their biddings when the votings are not going in their favor. Yeah, thank you.
Right. Thank you very much.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Grace Ampuma Efrifa. I work with Abantu for Development. My observation for elections 2024, and I want to use this platform to commend the EC for the tremendous work and the growth. We see growth in terms of its work. If we compare it from 2016, 2020, 2024, we realize that the before and during elections were consultative and engaging, and the Electoral Commission took its time to engage a lot of civil society and other stakeholders in its work. And you realize that there were lots more young women serving as presiding officers and electoral officers in this year's election based on our observations, and I want to commend the EC. However, the post-elections, as we have all mentioned, have been quite disturbing. With party officials taking over some departments and institutions. And it's amazing to see a winning party actually behaving in such a way that you would have thought that this should be an opposition doing that. But all in all, we are grateful that we saw a peaceful elections 2024. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Yes, please.
Good morning. My name is Maolawe, and I'm with the University of Ghana and Network of Women in Growth.
So my observations this election was the increased participation of women, especially even in the debates that they had on air from the different parties. I could see more engagement of women, and even the way they would debate the issues, there were facts. Like it wasn't any kind of talking. Like you could see the women and the men actually bantering it off based on facts, and that was really encouraging from both political parties, from the top political parties. I also was impressed by seeing more women at the polling stations. I remember I voted at Ghana TV service, Iowa So West, and there was I think there was an issue over there, and there was a young lady for one party, and the way she was very vocal was quite impressive because she was really fighting for something that needed to be done the right way. So that was also great. I think the way we vote now has changed, and political parties are beginning to see that, because even the way communications of their policies has changed. And so I hope that they all learn from it. Post-election, I see a lot of, apart from the challenges we had in terms of the violence, especially for the parliamentaries, that was quite terrible, because in my opinion, if you are winning as a party, there was no need to go through such violent means to be able to retain a seat as to whether it is yours or not. So that was quite terrible. I think the political parties didn't do well enough to rein in the foot soldiers. Apart from that, when people are given positions, the way foot soldiers or whatever it went stand at like what happened with the Ghana Revenue Authority, I think it was GRAS, when the president nominated somebody and party faithfuls were complaining against it, and there were those little pockets of, yes, that one too is ongoing, those little pockets of violence. I think the political parties must do well to educate their party faithfuls about these things, and that we've done elections. So now it's not about NDC or MPP, it's about moving the country forward. All in all, it was a peaceful elections. People need to be educated about voting, because if you go to a polling station and there is a fight, you should know when to walk away and when to stay. Some of the deaths were actually needless. You had no business getting involved to such an extent. So we all need to be educated about maintaining our composure when we go to the polling stations, because anger is a terrible thing. So I think I'll not put that on political parties alone. I think as individuals, we need to be educated more on our attitudes and behavior when we go to the polling station. We thank the EC for the good work that she has done, and we hope that it will get better and better. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Joyce Diame from the Youth Bridge Foundation.
Okay.
I happen to be an observer during the election, and one of the things I had observed and was amazed with was the level of information that had gone out. You could find that electoral officers were much more, maybe for lack of a better expression, patient with voters. So I remember the polling station that I was, much more people came without their IDs, and then officers were patient to tell them, oh, you can still, there are means that you just mention your name, they check the list, and then there were people who were there who were not supposed to be at that particular station. They were able to find ways of saying that, oh, you are at this particular polling station. So I think all in all, as others have said, there is a need for more information pre-voting stages, because then people are aware of some of the things. Most people do certain things, especially young people, without knowing the implications of what they are doing. I'm not giving space for bad doings, but there is a need for us to know that this is an electoral offense, this is the consequence, this is the punishment, so that people are able to know, and then if you do it and you are punished, then there is no cause for alarm.
Fabulous. Well done. Feruza, do you want to speak, or your Apo will ooze out of your head if you speak? Speak Feruza, then when I give you the podium, you speak Star Ghana.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
I am Feruza Wuniche Salisu. I work with Star Ghana Foundation. So maybe from the institutional level, my observation or our observation was that civil society organizations worked better together in terms of coordinating their actions towards the elections. We were sharing information amongst ourselves, which was very impressive compared to other elections. So that's one thing that stuck out for me. From a personal level, I think that there is still the lack of complete trust in our electoral processes. And you would see that when it got to the collation of results, people wanted to protect their votes because they didn't believe that the system would protect their votes. And that's what led to a lot of violence from the polling station. So I think that we really need to work on that end where people know that when they vote, their votes will be protected. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Give it to Babsi Lee. She thinks she's immune to this process. Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Baba Utu. I'm a communications consultant and a rapporteur for this event. I observed that in 2020, I think I spent about 3 hours at my polling center trying to vote. 2024, I was in and out in about 3.5 minutes. So the processes were vastly improved. I think, I'm not sure whether that was also because of low voter turnout maybe in my polling area, but for me it was a much faster and expedited process, and that will make me likely to vote again in 2028 because it was simplified. So yeah, thank you.
Fabulous, thank you. Auntie Charity,
Yeah,
you are welcome. Oh.
Thank you.
So I think all of you know the distinguished Dr. Charity Binka. Give her a warm round of applause. Madam, what was your observation on the election?
Thank you very much. I apologize.
And then there's a man. I'm coming after him after that.
Apologize for
after him. And Clara, you two today, you are not formally on my program, so you speak. Go ahead, Charity, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I've been around for a very long time. And every year that we have to vote, I usually go to vote. But last year was a year like no other year. It was very exciting for me. I found myself really very engaged. In the previous years when we had elections, I go to vote. We all do our advocacy for women to stand, women to be voted for. But to be in the thick of things, I wasn't. But last year we were able to partner with a number of organizations, Kofi Annan, I can see my brother here, or my son, to do a lot of things. One of the things that really excited me was the engagement or the involvement of the youth. We partnered with them under our program we were calling the Women's Situation Room. We partnered with Kofi Annan Center and so many other organizations from Liberia and others. And the youth were trained at the Kofi Annan Center by the the Kofi Annan Center. And their enthusiasm, and I want to say that if we even had a Women's Situation Room, we were able to go on a peace march. I mean, we did so many things. And the person who was in charge of our strong room reporting, we sent all these youth people, these young people all over. Even at first when we were identifying the people to train, the emphasis was more on young women. But then we added some young men. But we're wondering, can the women stand this stress going around? They're young, but they were really very excited, and from the reports we got from them, it was a good thing for young people to be involved in the electoral processes, for them to have a feel, and even to urge them on to do, to be part, to offer themselves as candidates. And I would say that I was very excited that when the Nyankpala incident happened, our people, those who were on the ground, they were the first to report it to the country and to the world. So we sent a statement, and then the rest is history. Not that it was a good thing, but the fact that our young people were there, and so that it tells them that we all need to keep the peace. And for us at the Situation Room and all that we did, I think, and all the delegates that came to our room from various countries, African countries, the Commonwealth and all that, and they were very excited for one thing, that the youth engagement and the women's engagement. And the women, we had to clap up for ourselves. We did great. We did marvelous. Can we clap for ourselves? And to see our very own vice president, now vice president, mounting all those things, standing in the cars and campaigning at her age and everything. It was amazing. And I can only say that we should do more, and we should start whatever we need to do from now before 2028. Because what we did in 2024, I must say we did a lot, but it was too late, and the results are clear. So this is time for us to start mobilizing and making sure that we start the preparation towards 2028, bringing the young people, getting them involved, getting them interested, that their vote is their power, and not only they should vote, but they also stand and also should be ambassadors for peace. Thank you very much.
Well done. Thank you very much. Now, I have Clara Osebwatin. Clara works for FCDO. She's not formally on the program today, so she's going to be subjected to this process. So give Clara the mic. Clara the Ghanaian, not Clara the FCDO. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Like Auntie Esther said, I work with FCDO, British High Commission, as a governance advisor. For me, the elections meant different things. As somebody who supports civil society work, I was impressed with the outcome of civil society's interventions, because 2024 election was the year where funding was a bit scarce compared to previous years. In terms of our budgets as a development partner compared to previous years, 2024 was a bit low. And yet, you did marvelous job, whether on women political participation, whether on inclusive elections, which covers other minority groups, PWDs. I think your visibility was there. I was particularly excited about, initially before the elections, we were all scared that given the primaries, the outcome of the primaries, we're going to have less women in parliament, because a significant number of them did not win their bid to contest. But surprisingly, some new entrants really surprised us. And I was particularly excited about one win, which unfortunately was overturned, because I had met that person before and I had engaged her, and so I knew her capabilities and all of that, so I was excited. But nevertheless, I think we have a little more than what we had in the previous administration, so that for me was a plus. People have spoken about the apathy, which wasn't surprising to me. In fact, the turnout was higher than some of us expected, given the dynamics and all of that, which also attests to the work of all stakeholders, including civil society organizations. So those were my observations, and I hope we can continue to work on it and address the many governance challenges that we have to improve the outcome of our democracy, so that it doesn't become just an electoral democracy. All the hype after election goes down and government does whatever they want to do. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much. Yes.
I didn't introduce myself, so let me just do the quick
all right.
one.
Okay.
My name is Charity Binka. I'm the Executive Director of Women Media in Change, and also the Chair of the African Women Leaders Network. Thank you very much, Ghana chapter.
Thank you very much, Charity. Thank you so much. Now, there's a man. I understand he's from Kofi Annan. I've sort of heard Bisa. So, and then, Madam, something, let me show you. Have you seen the lady in black there? She came and sat by the gentleman from the Federation of Disabilities. You think I didn't see her, but I saw her. And this man too, he's laughing merrily, but nobody has heard him. So do those three people and then I can close. Go ahead.
Good morning.
Yes, please.
First of all, apologies for arriving late. A colleague was supposed to come and she's not too well, so I had to step in.
That's right.
At the KIPTC, we believe that men should
Who
also
are you,
champion.
Please?
My name is Edmund Akutobamfo. I lead the youth program at the KIPTC, the YPS program at the KIPTC. And we are part of a larger department, the Women, Youth, Peace and Security Institute. So as Dr. Binka mentioned early on, for this election, our involvement, one was to train women and youth, enhance their capacity to observe the election, to them with the needed skill set to observe the election. We were able to deploy 144 domestic observers across 8 regions. They observed 1,050 polling stations, and we were receiving reports from them in real time. What we observed with the gender dynamics was that when it comes to the polling officials, we had parity in the gender distribution of the polling officials. However, when it comes to the presiding officers, they were majority men. So the polling officials, if you have 4, it's very likely to have 2 men, 2 women. But almost always the presiding officer was a man. So that's one of the things we observed. When it comes to the political party agents, they were majority men. They did not have parity in there. So majority of the political party agents happened to be male. But for the polling officials, we had that parity. For the security officers, so at the Women's Situation Room, we knew Codeo and OneUp and all the other groups will be taking the hard facts on the incidents when the polling opened and all of that. So we wanted to give a gender and youth lens to everything that we are doing. So we're not just observing the elections, we're trying to observe to see what role women are playing in the election. And for us, we realized that where there was some kind of compulsion, like the state side, there was an attempt to have that gender parity. But for the political parties, for reasons best known to them, maybe for, I dare speculate that for the work that they expect their polling officers to be doing at the polling stations, they believe that no, they need some men to do some aggression over there, so they did not send the men. So that's a little of what we observed.
Fabulous.
Additionally, we had young people, like Dr. Binka said, it wasn't just a women thing. For me, when I'm on board, me coming here, you'll be hearing me speak about youth. Because that is one way to sustain the gains that we make. When you get the young people, you make sure that for generations to come, whatever values that you have instilled will last. So we saw the young people not just participating, but taking ownership and leadership of the whole process. So we had our young people going where we had not even sent them in some cases. The original plan was to deploy in 4 regions. But when we took the geolocations from where they were reporting from, we realized that we were already spread in 8 regions. So we had to go back, amend our plans. They were moving at lightning speed. Some people at some point we were scared, we were just chasing after trouble because they hear there's trouble here and they move to the polling station so that we will get what was going on the ground. So though we were locked up in some hotel room, we were having every information that was on the ground, thanks to our women, thanks to our youth. Before the election, we didn't just wait for election day. Like Dr. Binka said, we did the peace march, we did the sensitization. We also did not just train observers, we trained conflict mediators. so that on the ground, when something happens, young people and women can take leadership in resolving some of these conflicts. And for us, the role played was immeasurable. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a fabulous addition to everything that we've heard. Madam, I haven't forgotten. We want to know who you are,
okay,
and maybe any observation, any reflection that you want to share with us about the past election. Yes.
Okay, my name is Joycelyn Cheba from Ghana Web. And I came in late, but what I've observed so far is that going into the 2028 elections, we expect to see more women standing as members of parliament to increase the gender balance in the legislative house. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, okay. Then the last one is this, my gentleman. Yeah.
I am Osabu Kliset from Ghanaian Times.
Indeed.
That my observation was that the polls were generally peaceful. And that's what that I can say for now.
Thank you very much.
Thank you too.
Okay, that they were generally peaceful. Could have been worse, but they were not worse. They were generally peaceful. Right, folks, give yourselves a warm round of applause. I think when you listen to the diversity of views, perspectives, ranging from methodology, they can hear me, can't they? Yeah. Views, perspectives, ranging from methodology, organizing, CSO roles, ownership, actions that happen. I think we have, amongst ourselves, done quite a bit of analysis of the 2024 elections from our perspectives on various dimensions and provided some thoughts on the way forward. Now, what I want to propose is this, that we are going to have the formal opening. We're going to invite Cynthia to give us a few welcome remarks, and then Feruza will represent Star Ghana, also give us a few good remarks. Now, when we've done that, the scent of onion in this room is overpowering me. So I beg you, please consume the onion, and then we will settle down and work. My time management is not doing badly at all, because I'm supposed to start the first panel at 11. So by 11, those who are consuming would have consumed the onion. Those who have gone to the bathroom would have gone to the bathroom. And 11 sharp, I constitute my panel over here. Does that work for you? Yeah. Right, okay. Cynthia? Yes, yes, yes. You want this? All right, okay.
Good morning to you all.
Morning.
Distinguished guests, partners, representatives from the Star Ghana Foundation, Feruza, the Canadian High Commission, Plan International Ghana, FCDO, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the head of Secretariat of Netright, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this National Post-Elections Consultative Forum, and to thank you for making time for joining us for what promises to be an engaging and even a necessary conversation about the state of our democracy, accountability, and then the future of gender-responsive governance in Ghana. This gathering marks the culmination of a series of regional post-election forums that have been occurring over the past week across 4 regions in Ghana. So we've been in the Volta region. We had a forum in Upper East region yesterday, and then the Northern region as well as the Eastern region. And these regional engagements were rich, thought-provoking, and deeply reflective of the unique context, concerns, and hopes of communities even at the grassroots level. The 2024 general elections brought both progress and persistent gaps, and even listening to all of us, you'd agree with me. Ghana witnessed yet another peaceful transition of power and achievements that cannot even be taken for granted. And for the first time, we saw a woman, Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, ascend to the role of vice president, which is a historic milestone for women's leadership in this country. And yet, despite this powerful moment, the numbers still tell a sobering story. Our women continue to be vastly underrepresented even in parliament, making up only 14.1% of MPs, with one constituency yet to be declared. And that's just 39 out of 276 parliamentary seats. The implementation of the newly passed Affirmative Action Act, which was a long fought for victory, did not significantly shift the scale in terms of women's political representation. While there have been some commendable efforts to appoint women to leadership positions in this new administration, these steps, we would say, have not been bold or far-reaching enough to reflect the intent of the Affirmative Action Act. And more deliberate action is needed to ensure that women's representation moves beyond tokenism and becomes a structural priority in our governance systems. Beyond representation, the question of inclusion also remains stuck. Our tax policies continue to disproportionately burden women in the informal sector, who make up nearly 70% of the informal workforce. Digital financial tools remain out of reach for many rural women. Our social protection systems are not yet structured to even account for the invisible but invaluable care work that women carry daily. And we cannot speak of inclusive democracy without addressing these inequalities. We cannot speak of accountability without returning to the campaign promises that were made and asking what changes are really occurring for women, youth, and then marginalized communities. Today, we had hoped that the Electoral Commission would have been able to join us here today, but sadly, they have not been able to join us. Their reflections and insights would have been critical to this post-election process, given the critical role they played in shaping and overseeing Ghana's democratic processes. According to communication from the EC, they are yet to conduct their own national review, and so without that national review having happened already, they would be unable to share their reflections from the elections with us. The forum is part of Netright's ongoing commitment to creating space for dialogue, reflection, and collective action on gender equality and women's rights issues. Under our project on advancing gender-responsive governance and inclusive democracy in Ghana, which is being supported by the Star Ghana Foundation and the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office, FCDO, we are centering voices and building momentum towards a democracy that serves all, especially those who have been historically left out. Today, we will hear from our seasoned electoral observers, gender advocates, analysts, academia, and even women leaders across sectors to critically examine the 2024 electoral processes and even reflect on the path forward. We look forward to enriching discussions, diverse perspectives, and transformative recommendations that will take us beyond post-elections rhetoric to real change for women. Thank you, and I welcome you all once again. But before I take my seat, we have our head of secretariat online, Madam Patricia Blanks-Senakapo, who would want to speak to us briefly before Feruza comes over. Thank you. Auntie Paz, please, you have the floor.
Yeah. Good morning, and thank you, Cynthia. Cynthia, I should have told her you are the one who wants me to speak. So thank you for attending this forum. I just want to say briefly that Netright, when you look at past elections, Netright don't directly engage in election issues. It's our member organizations that do that. But for the 2024 elections, we decided that, yes, we're Women's Rights Network and it will be good whilst our members are looking at the specific issues. We also, from a gender equality and social inclusion perspective, look at the issues that are coming up. And one of the things that we also said we'll do was not only to monitor the elections or engage political parties on the issues, on their campaign promises, but then after the elections, whoever wins the election would also hold them accountable. So the party that wins the election and also individual parliamentary candidates that won. So that's why we are having this engagement. And Cynthia also did mention that in the regions, I think Eastern region, Upper West region, Northern region, and Volta region, we've also had this consultative processes to assess what has been done so far, what the government is doing. I think for us, one of the things that stood for us this election is that we had a situation where we had a lot of we trained 30 young people, young women, to directly be engaged in the observation of the elections. And during that observation period, the things that we're looking at was the gender equality and social inclusion issues. So some of the things that came, some of our findings were that though the EC, we wanted an inclusive elections, we realized that in some of the polling stations, there were some challenges in respect of inclusion. For instance, for the polling station that I observed, where the voting was taking place was on stairs, and it was a bit challenging for persons physically challenged to be able to access the premises. But I think the other thing was that the polling agents there were able to, or should I say the EC officials there were able to support the people, so that even if you are not able to climb the stairs, they will bring the voting materials to you wherever you are to be able to also vote. So these were some of the things that we find. What was also engaging was the fact that we had a lot of young people engaging in the election process, not only voting, but also observing. It was their first time experience. So I think that was also great. So I just needed to share these few findings that we had. And I hope this will not end the discussions about how we are engaging governance processes, because what we are doing as Netright goes beyond the elections. We are looking at governance processes and ensuring that they are inclusive. Everybody is on board. So today's forum will, for instance, look at some of the things that the current ruling government did mention that they will do, and whether they are honoring their promises. We'll look at, for instance, the appointments, for instance, to see whether it's going the way that they claim. They will ensure that at least 30% women are involved in their governance processes and all that. Once again, I thank you all for coming, and I look forward to a fruitful deliberation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you very much. I have the pleasure to invite Feruza to say something briefly, very briefly, and then we'll do the next thing.
So, good morning, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Star Ghana Foundation, it's an honor to address this National Consultative Forum on Post-Elections Accountability, which is organized in partnership with Netright under the project Advancing Gender Responsive Governance and Inclusive Democracy in Ghana. This initiative is supported by the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, FCDO, and is pivotal in our collective pursuit of a more inclusive and accountable governance framework in Ghana. I had prepared a very beautiful speech, but I realized that Patricia's remarks pretty much covers everything, and so I wouldn't want to repeat what has already been said, but to just thank all of you for being here today. And also it is our hope that we will take advantage of this particular forum to discuss issues that are important, in prioritizing the voices of women, young people, and socially excluded groups. Thank you very much.
Well done, well done, well done, well done, well done. Thank you all very much. Now I want to, temporarily dissolve this assembly so that, we can do stuff. But I have two big requests to make. The first request is that somebody is intent on feeding you. So she has a paper that will go around so that you'll indicate what you want for lunch. They want to do it quickly so that they can cook now. But understand one set of options will not be boxed. The other, and the young lady there, the paper she's waving is about what you want for lunch. Those who want to pack, so that you indicate to her, she'll bring it around. The second is I want a group picture. Yes, and this gentleman is leading the campaign, ably supported by this lady. Unfortunately, they wanted outside, just here, just outside the door. So I would be happy, I would be indebted if you would follow them and take the picture. Take it quickly, come and have some snack, and then by 11:15 we'll start the panel. Is that okay with everybody? Cynthia, you want to say something? I was thinking it should be here. We've been holding. Okay, so then let's do it here. Okay, very quickly. Let's do it. Up together. Women of Ghana, we are all one. I'm coming, you two, you are going. Women of Ghana, we are all one with you. And ITEY, we shall overcome. Hey, you don't know how to sing it. Madam, sing. Women of Ghana, we are all one. Women of Ghana, we are all one with you. And ITEY, we shall overcome. A question was bregu. A question of bregu with you. And ITEY, we shall overcome. Feruza, you can sit here. Okay, sit. Me, if you want to sit, me, I'll sit. Oh. Okay, please. Come and sit. Quickly, quickly. Evelyn, Beauty. Rebecca. Charity Tenasia, bro. And Clara. And where's the man from KPIT? There are too many women here. Okay, good. Do we have, is your man good? Okay, he's good. Please, who's coming? Quickly. The lady black, what are you doing there? You didn't speak. I didn't mind you. I pretended I hadn't seen. But mummies, we know everything. Mummies, we know everything. Come. Yes. I'm sure your mommy knows everything. Me too, I know everything. All right, let's put the mic down. Charity, sit down.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm one of the few people who can shout at you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, are you good? Are you good? You?
Have you taken the picture already? Oh, at least allow us to smile.
All right. Smile, everybody. I'm smiling. Sorry.
Is the noise captured in your picture?
The interrupt.
Oh, somebody is still here.
Come on, Obi down.
Oh, no.
Bye, girl. Bye.
Let's just leave it here.
Should we straighten this one? Madam, what do you need so I help you? Okay, folks, everybody quickly outside just for a few minutes. Okay, Munko Chamra, why? Clara, Munko Chamra, why? Charity, go and take it and come. Munko Chamra. Yes, please. Empty me. I make up for these things on time. Esther. Yes. Oh, I think your heart just jumped out of me. I need help with the. I like it. Yeah. I like it a lot. Please hurry up and come back. Oh, Rebecca, bring them back quickly. Please. I have a program to run. Ekuya Shana Bregu. Ekuya Eshan. Cynthia. What's the reason? Wabregu. You're my brother. Hello, are you refreshed? Good, 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 good. I want to jolly you on to the next part of our agenda. I have a very exciting panel for you, but I want to go and sit there before they come so that they will feel assured that I have come. Oh, the rest of you can eat, so it's okay. I should use this. Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to our very first panel. The panel will continue the reflections on Ghana's 2024 elections. I think a lot have been said by all of you and by our hosts that the 2024 elections were very interesting for various reasons. Elections are the most fundamental way of expression, of voice and citizenship. A blunt instrument of accountability, if you like, but it allows for people to also feel that they are participating in selecting a leader for this country. And in spite of all of our fears and the prayers and the predictions and the prophecies, this country still held together after the elections. Again, we also made a lot of efforts to mobilize women and young people, as you heard, to participate in these elections. Like somebody observed, the primaries made our hearts sink a little, that we're going to lose out where the women were concerned. But we've ended up, as we've been told, with about 14%, which is not what we want, but it could be much worse. But what lessons are there also for women, not only as candidates, but also as citizens exercising their franchise, exercising their votes? There are a lot of lessons to be learned and a lot of unfinished business. Now, like somebody said, there have been various charges, the issues of intimidation, the issues of misinformation, political party financing, influencing, all of those factors. We don't want to wait till 2028. We have to start now. There will probably be a test run in 2026 with the local government elections. You know, I'm a local government person, so I never lose an opportunity to talk about local government when I have it. So it's important and it's imperative that we mobilize our lessons now and see if we can do better than we've done in the past. So this is an opportunity to reflect, especially with the passage of the Affirmative Action Act and also our push for gender parity. 14.1% is not good enough, but can we make up in other ways? These are some of the things that I want us to talk about. So at this time, I have enormous pleasure, I have the singular privilege to invite to join me up here, Mr. Frank Owusu Frimpong, Ghana Union Movement. Uncle Frank, are you coming? Clap for the gentleman. Okay. Then I also want to invite one of Ghana's finest women, Beauty Emefanate, Ghana Anti-Corruption Coalition. And then finally, and not the least, I have a sense of particular pride in inviting Grace Ampuma Afrifa, Abantu for Development, to join us also here. Ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome. So I want to start, first of all, Beauty, I think I'll start with you. I want to get a certain sense of your overall assessment of the 2024 general elections. We went around the room and you heard what people said. What particularly went well and what did not? I mean, regrettably, what's your general assessment of it?
Thank you very much, Auntie Esther. Good morning once again, colleagues. Based on the reflections, I think one thing that went well for me has to do first with the relationship that's the EC, starting from the Electoral Commission. The fact that the EC, for the first time in many years, has opened up, engaged. It's echoing. Can you hear me well?
Yeah,
oh, okay.
we can, yeah.
I can hear myself. All right. Okay. So for the first time, the EC has been able to reach out and engage civil society. I must say that previously, especially the election 2020, we had made several attempts to have some engagements with the EC, which didn't work out. And that also left the opportunity for us to have the EC on board in terms of the work that we do. For instance, as CSOs who are interested in doing awareness creation and sensitization, obviously we couldn't have done it on our own without the support and the participation of the EC. So I might say that that for me is first point of documenting what went well for the last election. Secondly, it also has to do with information, access to information. I must say that we were able to get a lot of the information we wanted promptly from the EC, and we also had the political parties also being ready to participate and engage with us. And that also, for me, is good, because civil society needs all these relevant actors if we want to make impact. So when we are engaging them and they make themselves available, it helps. Another point that I also want to make has to do, especially from the side of civil society again, has to do with a lot of collaboration. We saw that civil society collaborated. There was a lot of collaboration. We were not working in silos as we used to do. So that also helped, especially when you look at resource efficiency. So you had IDEC, CFI collaborating closely with CODIO and also helping in terms of value addition. You also had WILDAF also bringing on board their expertise. So all these stakeholders who previously could have done things on their own have realized that it is important to collaborate, to engage. And also that's also helped in terms of the engagement with the relevant actors. At that point, we are not overwhelming them with demands from single CSOs, but we are looking at engaging them collectively. So platforms were provided. UNDP facilitated a number of discussions where we were able to meet with the electoral management body. Additionally, we also saw some responsiveness from the security agency where they created the platform for engagement. Hitherto, they were not so open, but they were open, they were responsive, and they were taking feedback from us. And I think that is something that we should also commend. In order not to take everything from my colleagues, I also want to add that when it comes to issues of voter education, GACC, GRI, and other partners at the district level, we decided that it is important, even though previously we do a lot of sensitization, we recognize a unique population that we have not been able to cater for. I must make note that Youth Bridge previously had, the past election was able to cater for this unique group, which is the first-time voters. So we decided and also went to Youth Bridge to get lessons from them. So even though we had the funding and we could do it, we still had to find a way to bring the experience and expertise of Youth Bridge on board as still part of the collaboration. And we're able to engage these first-time voters. If you look at the data, we have over 15% of our voter population being first-time voters. So if we are not able to address their challenges and interests, then we are going to get people who are not very much prepared in terms of their exercising of their franchise. And this I could also commend the EC that when we engaged and collaborated, they worked with us in every district that we have worked with. The EC was with us. So that for me are some of the things. What didn't go well generally has to do, one, with the issue of misinformation. I think we had anticipated that, and we're happy some of the civil society were working on this, which particularly Media Foundation and a few others had looked at how, because we realized that misinformation was going to cause a lot of harm if not managed quickly. So Fact Check Ghana, Media Foundation were working to be able to establish what the truth is, because once it becomes viral, getting what the actual truth is becomes a challenge. And by the time you may want to bring the actual truth, more harm may have been caused. So this is something that has helped, but also we have seen that it came. But for the timely mitigation of some of these stakeholders, and it could have even generated into other chaos. We also want to say that we didn't anticipate some of the violence that happened in Accra. Usually we see violence, pockets of violence happening in other places. But for the first time, because of some of the issues that colleagues have already mentioned, we saw that Accra has documented a lot of this violence in this election, which could have been avoided and prevented. So I will end it here and then add on as we go on. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. Uncle Frank, do you have a little to add? What worked well and what did not in this regard? Just a tiny bit, and then I might also solicit from you.
All right, thank you very much for this opportunity. With me as a freshener in politics, I would say that I can't call it a miracle, but it just happened. I found myself into politics in 2020 when my founder had the idea of forming a political party. So there and then I got on board as a communicating person for the party. So I said I'm a freshener. If I had been in parliament, probably this might have been my second time in parliament. But personally, I believe that since Ghana returned to constitutional rule some 32 years ago, our party politics, our electoral processes in electing our leaders has seemed to toe a kind of line. That is, after every 8 years, one party must go for the other one to come. I can recollect within the last 4 terms of elections that a party spent only 4 years in government and then left. I remember during the first term of Professor Atamels, may God keep his soul, he passed on for the current president, then the vice president, President Mahama, to take office. But he also went in to complete the 8-year term. So from my point of view, this 2024 elections seems like it's been predetermined. The outcome was already predetermined. by adding on to what my sister said, yes, the EC has been a bit improved when it comes to their engagement with stakeholders. Like she rightly said, we saw a significant improvement. But then one thing that I did not see well was during our IPAC meetings, some of the policies that we wanted reforms on didn't go well. It did not go well from my point of view as an IPAC member. Let's take, for instance, when we wanted to use or not use the indelible ink. You know, I think we all here, we heard what went on. That aside, when it came to the voter register, from the beginning to the end of it, there were always misconceptions. There were always issues. And I think the NDC, who were then in opposition, spearheaded that. To many of us, we thought they were just playing mischief. But at the point, we saw that they were right, and it helped. Because if that consistency has not been held by the NDC, a different story would have been told by now, just with the voter register. Because I remember the last IPAC meeting we had at Alisa Hotel, which was in camera, with the media around. The NDC has come out to say that they saw about 234,000 plus votes that were not appropriately, allocated. The EC went back and forth trying to address the issue. As an IPAC member, I will not sit here to run them down. I wish a rep of them was here to help us. That aside, even on the election day, some of the challenges that were visible was that in many polling stations, the materials were not ready. The time to start voting was at 7 a.m. and some began as late as 9:30. Eating through the evening. And when others had already collated their results, some were still counting theirs. So to me, briefly, because we'll have another time to come on other issues about this, I believe that even though I said in the beginning we had a significant improvement, I could still say that there is more room to do better.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we need to keep an eye on these issues going forward. Can I change tack a bit? For you, how inclusive was the electoral process? I mean, what did you think? Did we do better for enhancing the participation of women, young people, persons with disability, that kind of thing? How inclusive was the process?
Thank you, Auntie Esther. I'll start with before, during, and after the elections, how inclusive the processes were. So, before the elections, I'll talk about the role of the EC, and Madam has talked extensively about that, so I'll just briefly state that. The EC made itself available to all stakeholders. Abantu has been engaging with young women as election observers for the past 4 elections, both district assembly and the national elections. So the last election was no different. However, this time I realized that the urgency with which the EC wanted all the observers to be part of its training was unique. In 2020, only 2 people were allowed to go for the training with EC, but this time all our observers were allowed to go for the training. And after the engagement with EC, we were also given the Deputy Research Director to also take them through an extensive session of the observation process. So that for me was remarkable. We also got the Deputy Director for Research to engage with faith-based organizations, pastors, imams, and other key stakeholders on how to educate their constituents. So that for me was also key, because these are key players when it comes to elections, and the influence and the impact they have on the citizenry is high. So that for me is a plus for the Electoral Commission. Now, the issue of allocating a lesser number of electorates to every polling station also remarkably helped. And one of us stated that it took her less than 3 minutes to go and vote. This time, the EC allocated about 745 electorates per polling station, which is far lesser than what we ordinarily see in previous elections. So reducing the numbers for each polling station also ensured that people did not spend hours in queues to go and vote. Now, as a gender activist, I will move on a little to the issue of inclusion in women's participation before the elections. Now, before the elections, Auntie Esther mentioned that the primaries shocked all of us. And when we looked at especially the ruling party then and its primaries, it brought a lot of uncertainty, a lot of loss of hope, if I should say, to us as women's rights activists, because we knew the efforts we had placed into women's representation, the affirmative action bill, and all that we were championing. And to see the less number of women winning the primaries was a cause for alarm. And it actually reflects in the current number that we have, 41 out of 376 members of parliament.
276.
One added. Now, for us as a Bantu, partnership is critical, and we have always partnered with the media. So before the elections, we partnered with Joy FM Multimedia to come up with a program called the Just Turned 18. And we spoke with young women who had just turned 18 in the Gan West Municipal Assembly, to be precise, in Amasamai, Kutunse, Opa, and all these smaller communities in the Gan West Municipal Assembly, to educate young women who have just turned 18 to understand the policies underpinning the need to vote and who to vote for, and what policies that have their best interests at heart. Now, during the elections, I was in the Brim Central Municipal Assembly during the elections. I came down constituency, to be precise. That's where I come from. Oh, that's interesting. So I was there supervising our observers for Asamai Kese, for Akemoda and its environs. So Abantu sent out 50 young women election observers in the Greater Accra, Ashanti, Eastern and Volta regions. This year's election was very sad for me because the voter turnout was terrible. I literally was making phone calls, begging people. I went around the markets, begging women, explaining to them why they just need to go out to vote. I actually paid for transport for some to go and vote, because as a practitioner, I know the essence for exercising this civic responsibility. In all the the polling stations we observed, the voter turnout was just around 33 to 57%. 33. And to realize that these were areas I had been in the previous election, and the kind of enthusiasm with which people gathered around to even observe the counting. People were no longer interested in observing the counting processes. And this goes a lot to say how we have lost hope, trust in our own electoral processes. And for a young person like me, this is not a worthy example for young people. It tells that we are losing our patriotism as a country, and we are losing our interest in our own democracy. and this does not augur well for us. I literally cried during this election. Somebody got there, I begged somebody to go there, and she got there a minute to the end of the election. I had to speak to the security officials to let the person vote. A minute, because to them, voting had ended. So after the elections, we finished with during, so let's go to after the elections. After the elections, we would have all thought that conceding defeat by a ruling party was enough to end any kind of violence that would occur. So I was very excited, finally we've had peaceful elections, let's all go to bed, the work is over, we slept around 2 a.m. So, we are done, can we go home? And to realize that such a peaceful election that was run ended up in a lot of violence, except for Kaswa and Nyankpala where we had issues. Then right after the elections, we have a lot of violence, which we should not encourage. We should not. No political party should encourage its members to go out. I know that the President, His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, issued a statement to its party members to stop, but it came quite late. I listened, that message came quite late, because I was expecting it to come immediately, because the violence was getting out of hand. Just as Forestry Commission, invasions, Obuasi, I had calls from Obuasi stating that the district assembly had been taken over. What are we doing in district assembly and taking over tables and chairs when eventually we are the ones going to rule the country anyways? So these how inclusive the elections were before, during, and after. The last thing I want to add is with PWDs. Now, during the elections, I observed that some of the polling stations were accessible to PWDs. However, there were some that were not accessible. I would have thought that up until today, we would be intentional in ensuring that all polling stations were on down floors where persons with disabilities could access, but we still had polling stations upstairs, on stairs, and I personally witnessed some elderly women being carried at the backs of individuals to climb stairs to go and vote. So these are some of my observations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, I would like to plow on. Beauty. We have complained about the fact that our political campaigns and our voting is still very much personality driven and divisive. We haven't moved much from the day that my grandmother used to shout from the middle of the field, teacher, who did you say we should vote for? Then teacher will respond with who she's supposed to vote for. The whole world knows that who she is. Somebody would argue that we haven't moved much from there. To what extent do you think that 2024 we experienced a departure? We moved more towards issues, and people moved out of their comfort zones to stand for things that were affecting their very lives. Yeah.
Thank you, Auntie Esther. Before I talk about that, I just wanted to add a bit to
the inclusivity.
The inclusivity.
Very good.
Actually,
very good.
Not the violence issue and then the apathy. I think that two things. One, we should also recognize that after every 8-year cycle, we experience apathy. So that's something that we have to also draw attention to, because it happened during the collective 8 years of Mills Mahama. Yeah. We have seen that, and the low voter turnout, which contributed to the defeat of the NDC at the time, and it has also repeated. So that also, it's a way of electorates communicating to government that if you are not delivering the goods, then we may as well sit back and not participate in the process. So at that time, we said it was NDC people who didn't vote. Now we have seen that the MPP also stayed back. So that's something that we need to pay attention to, and then also see how do we address it. But more importantly for me, I think it's a challenge to whoever is in government to know that the citizens have a way of giving their no vote of no confidence if they don't see the goods. Additionally, with the issue of violence, I think this year what also heightened the issue of violence, or some of the violence that we saw, unfortunately, most of the violence we recorded were posts. So, and you could see that this happened because we have already concluded on the results, and we've seen that the opposition has won overwhelmingly. So what we sense is that some of the security agencies were now careful, knowing that the opposition is the one that is coming in. So whatever I do, if my actions are seen as anti-opposition now, I would have problems, in a few couple of days. So because of that, some of them decided to stay on the fringes, even when they had opportunity or ability to take action. So that is something also we need to take note of and see how we address that in future elections.
Beauty, let me just quickly interrupt. Yes. So, are we then looking at the ways in which post-election disputes were handled? Were they not, do we have lessons to learn from those processes?
Exactly, there are a lot of lessons there, but in this particular situation, we've not experienced it before. I think this is the first time opposition has won overwhelmingly to the point that everybody, and that's why we even had a small government minority in parliament. So it was so overwhelming that it dawned on everybody that I have to be careful. So I think that is something that we need to take note of, and the repercussions, because there were things that the security agencies could have acted on quickly or proactively, but they decided to sit on. And even at a point, if we recall, the electoral commissioner even accused the police of not supporting them. Yeah. So when they were now going to do some of the recollation, the police decided to stay back, even though they were supposed to have been there and give support. So that's something that we could have also heightened the violence that we witnessed. Now back to the question Auntie Esther asked about the election in terms of the campaign. I think that, yes, this year we need to, the last election, we need to commend especially Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia for doing so well to stay on campaign of issues. And for the first time, by driving that agenda, we also saw that the opposition also had no option than to align. So this year we saw the campaign of abuse and insults, the last election, has reduced a bit. And even where other from the camps of the two parties even attempted to do it, they became too obvious, and everybody could see it and condemn it. So there were even statements, for instance, from the current president that he made somewhere that was condemned. There were statements that the aspiring vice president candidate Napo made that were also condemned. So those became so obvious. But previously, it was so much of, laced with everything that we became so used to the abuse that it became more like the norm. But we need to comment that this election was different. This election was a bit focused. And also say that the issues were driving, even though the two parties at a point were struggling with the issues. Because, of course, if you have the NPP struggling to remarket its track record, And you also had the NDC also struggling to give a message. And also the message, there were holes being punched into those messages. At a point, it made it difficult, and you are not sure what exactly are they saying. So in terms of the clarity, so we went round, move around the 24-hour, and then we now came to free SHS. And for the first time now, we're now fighting over free SHS as to who owned free SHS. So it came to a point, people were now saying, is this election going to be decided by free SHS? Because it's like now free SHS became a property and an entity that everybody wanted to own. And the parties were struggling, even though there were other issues that they needed to talk about. So, and additionally, I also thought that the female vice president of the NDC, was not heightened and used as this is something, a new thing we are offering Ghanaians. So even though those of us who are advocating for gender, we saw that this is good for Ghana, the party itself was not able to market that product. So you wouldn't see young people saying that, we want to see a first female. I thought that it was a loss or a missed opportunity. Yeah. Because we could have generated some vibe and said that, yes, for the first time, this is what we are. So I felt the NDC could have even put more of their energy, redirected the energy from the free SHS fight to, pushing that gender. For the first time, we are going to create a record for you. So those are some of the things that happened. And additionally, I also thought that in terms of the issues, what also helped has to do, we should commend our media. At least the media also did well with the issues, because they were those who were always hiding, and then they want the breaking news, and they wanted to heighten all the wrong things and all that. But I think the media should be commended. They were balanced in terms of reportage, and for those of us who were monitoring in terms of abuse of incumbency, where the government in power takes advantage of all these things, you could see that there was some attempt, even for the private media houses, to balance this. So in one news, you hear if the vice president at the time speaks, then you will see the same story. It will also have the NDC also. They choose anyway what to focus on. But at least they gave opportunity for the two parties. So you wouldn't feel that one party is being projected to the disadvantage of the other. This may not be in terms of the issues, but I want to also bring one key role that the Office of the Special Prosecutor played. That we could also, I think that also point has to be made. Previously, from where we have observed over the years, we've observed almost all the elections in terms of vote buying and abuse of incumbency. We saw the flagrant display of, people just want to show that we are buying votes. And they don't care. Even where we talk about it, they don't care. But at least from 23, when the special prosecutor started, it started with the assembly elections. And then 2022, right? Yes, 2023. So it started with the assembly elections, and then now followed with the primaries, the party primaries. So at that point, it's like everybody was being put in check. And I recall the special prosecutor's office saying, an MP now comes to ask them, a potential MP at the time said, I want to do this, please, is it corruption? For me, that was good. The fact that now people are careful, that didn't mean that it didn't happen. It just also means that they found another way of doing it, but it wasn't thrown at us and in our faces as if there are no laws.
Right.
Thank you.
Yeah, Uncle Frank, I'm really curious to hear what you have to say about all of this. Again, because the discussion appears to assume that there are just two political parties in this country. And then also from your perspective as a communicator, what did you think about the political messaging and whether we're campaigning on issues or it was still personality driven and all of this? I mean, I'm curious to hear your take on all of this. Yeah.
Thank you once again. To me, I've seen that Ghanaians are maturing, political-wise. Initially, we were being more subjective by more than being objective. We were being subjective because the tradition or culture of our political landscape is that after every 8 years, whether you like it or not, you must go. I think in the last elections, the MPP had wanted to break that cycle. They were thinking it was possible. Okay? Until at the end of the day, they saw it was impossible. No, let me give you my humble reason. Just like Beauty was enumerating, if you bring a topic for campaigning, like the free SHS, and think just by saying, I have established or implemented a good policy, in quotes, that you must not even scrutinize it. You must not even examine how it is really benefiting me. But the mere fact that you've introduced something, you've introduced a policy, I must accept it. Ghanaians are outgrowing that. Other than that, the MPP would have won. That's why I said initially that we are maturing. Thank you very much on that. And then when it comes to the anti-corruption, I've had the opportunity of meeting reps of the OSP during some forums that I attended. I had the privilege to attend. I've been asking them that you see political parties are not accounting for their financial, expenditures. Why is that you are not cracking the whip? Okay, Frank is doing something bad. You are an investigator. You don't need me to come to you before you know what I'm doing. Before I say, Jack, you even know where I am. You are giving us evidence or you are giving us samples of what you've done. But we've not seen the end result of what you said you've done. So how can I believe in the OSP that you are dealing with this political corruption? That is one aspect of it. Then secondly, there is an institution that I want us to look that we seem to have ignored, respectfully, the Peace Council. When we talk about the success of our elections in the past years, especially in 2024, I can sit here and say confidently that the Peace Council played a major role. Because they are always behind the scenes and we don't see or hear exactly what they do for us. The things we hear about them is the speculations. Oh, the Peace Council is not doing anything. The Peace Council should have done this. The Peace Council should have done that, but they are not doing anything. They did a lot to make sure this campaign that Beauty was talking about was devoid of hate speech. It is part of their effort that even made the vice president, then the presidential candidate for the MPP, to concede earlier. Most of us don't know about this. He would not have conceded that earlier. But then there were a lot of talks going on. We were privy to some of those things, so I can't divulge it as I sit here. But they were part that made him concede earlier. Because, do you know something? The NDC was poised to take the throne because they felt it was theirs. coupled with the result that came out that we all say it was overwhelming, you ask yourself that, I know I have won. Why should I fight again? But because they have intelligence report that probably the MPP and the EC were going to, manipulate figures to send the election into a runoff. So they'll make sure no runoff comes on. Now, as we sit here, I think you and I know that there are still some constituencies whose results were not declared. And yet, the final declaration was made. Supposedly, someone might say that if those constituency total amount were collated, probably it would have changed the total outcome. I hope you understand. But then, with the eagle eyes, of the opposition, seeing how far they've gone. Strangely, some of us may not know this, that the election itself was won over 2 million votes. That has never happened. But when we went to the National Coalition Center, we were given a figure around 1.something million. But the actual figures was over 2 million. It was so overwhelming. When we went to the National Coalition Center, we were given a figure around 1.something million. So in 2020, we came third. As debutant, we came third. But in 2024, it was another story. You understand? So, not trying to, distort my presentation. I believe that as a country, it is up to us to determine who leads us as mandated in our Constitution. But before getting those leaders to lead us, we must know why we are voting, not just because we need to vote. That is why I said earlier that sometimes we were made to do things subjectively, but not objectively. With my inclusion of the 3 SHS, you give me a policy that I can't grow with. You give me a policy that I can't improve upon. You even give me a policy that I can't challenge. And you just want me to toe your line. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. And then ending with the political parties' expenditure financially. BT was saying that an MP had gone to the OSP to ask, if I do this, is it corruption? Now you ask yourself, you want to lead me, but you want to pay me before you lead me. I am sending you out there to go and do something for me. But after you paying me, will you go and do what I expect you to do? You will not do it. If I allow you to pay me before I send you on that errand, you will not do my bidding. That is why some 32 years ago, we always come back complaining. We voted for them, but we did not see the goods, like BT was saying. It has happened in 4 occasions or 4 cycles. The NDC in 1992 to the year 2000, we said the late President, His Excellency Rawlings, failed us. 2000 to 2008, initially we had thought that the inclusion of HIPIC had helped. By the end of 2008, we felt the MPP has failed us. With the Better Agenda Policy campaign by Professor Atamels, we felt the NDC was going to be a better option. He came, unfortunately he left. But when the now president came to take office, after 4 years, they said he was the worst performing president, saddled with corruption. It was only after 2016 that we saw that he wasn't that corrupt. Please, I hope I'm making something.
Uncle Frank, putting me in the danger of being the worst performing moderator.
You know.
So we have to wrap up. Yes.
You getting it? So it's like we expect so much without us being part of it. Okay, that is what I can say to end it. We are expecting so much without us being part of it. It takes always two to tango. So as we've come here to deliberate on such issues, if we go to our various institutions, I am believing that we can begin to prepare something down ourselves. From the CSOs, from the gender activists, from the political parties, to the Electoral Commission. Then come 2028, I believe we'll have a better elections than ever in this country. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Now, folks, I am not managing my time very well because the discussions are so interesting. I need to open this up very briefly so that I can get some inputs from you. Then I can have my second panel so that we manage the time. And then maybe as a way forward, we shall have a broader discussion of the issues that have been raised. Can I solicit 1, 2, 3 views? I'll solicit yours. I'm soliciting yours. Yours is a request. His. Because I didn't hear the disability thing to my satisfaction. So 1, 2, and then who will be the third for me? Jacob. Yes, 3. Go ahead. Yeah. So the first hand is here. Tesano. Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for the interesting discussions. I think I'm picking up on the missed opportunity from the NDC in terms of having a female vice president and really campaigning on that. I'm also seeing it as silence that is communicating. I'm seeing it as a silence that is communicating. Right. I was really looking up to see a lot of noise being made about that. Because that was really an opportunity.
Right. Thank you very much. Right. Thank you very much. Yes, my second one is the solicited. I want a bit of.
Very much for this opportunity. What I would say about persons with disabilities during the election time was that, let me use myself as an example. When I went to my polling station to go and vote, when I got there, the tactile jacket for the blind or visually impaired was available. But the moment I got there with my assistant, they called the presiding officer. The presiding officer came around. He held me, he just took the paper and went to the booth with me. I was like, what is happening? Let me just see what is going to happen. So after he inserted the paper into the tactile jacket, he still wanted to hold my hand and place my hand where I wanted to vote.
Guided democracy.
So I was like, no, I can handle it myself, so you should leave me. So he left me and I counted, I saw where I wanted to vote and I put my thumb there and I did that. But the man was still standing closer to me. So I asked that, so where is the principle of secret voting at play? So when it was time for the member of parliament on, I told him that when we enter the booth, I wouldn't like his assistant. You should leave me. When I'm done, I will call him. And he did that. After he did it too, he took the paper and he folded it by himself. And he was leaving me there to go and put it in a box. I was like, Mr. Man, what's happening? I am here to vote. What you are here to do is to assist me. Moreover, the paper too has been folded in that form, after which you just do it vertically. You didn't need any special skill to be able to do that. So let me just do it, and let's get to the box and let me put it in, and that will be it. So what I realized was that although the EC made available tactile jackets for persons with visual impairment at the various polling stations, one, the officers were not trained.
Okay.
The officers were not trained, so I presume they were told, this is called a tactile jacket for the blind. Any blind person that comes, put it inside for the person, that's all. But as to what will go in, guiding the person through the voting process, let the person have that secrecy that all persons have, it wasn't there. Now with accessibility, some places to our brothers who use the wheelchair or those who have difficulty in moving, they were not able to access those places. So the electoral commissioners had to bring the papers or the ballot sheet down to them and let them vote. Like, it was so unfriendly, and you could feel the discrimination. Because how will you feel if you are going to vote and somebody would have to carry you at the back? It is so dehumanizing, and it doesn't even give a good feeling to be able to go through the electoral process. So some of our colleagues will say that, I wouldn't go. Let me just stay where I am and be fine. And our brothers with hearing impairment, the sign language interpreters, we had no sign language interpreters at the polling stations. So when the hearing impaired goes, what is going to be the mode of communication? That one too is something that we humbly plead that it should reach the EC to pay attention to some of these things. And providing the tactile jacket at the polling station is not enough to ensure that persons with disabilities exercise their right of voting, but it entails a lot. And come 2028, we want to see some of these things, inclusivity, included in their activities for persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jacob, very quickly, and then I'll round up quickly here and sack you people from my chairs. Go ahead. Yeah. Jacob. Yeah. Yeah. Well, if it works, why not? Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you to your panelists. I just want to mention two things. One has to do with the challenge of the inclusion of women.
Okay.
And from another angle, what I see could be the challenge is around the financing of campaign. I mean, GII, GACC, and Madam BT, is it CDD? Yes, for the IFS project. We have done some work. I don't know if I can disclose the findings because we are yet to release a report. But a chunk of campaign financing went into television, radio, billboards, posters, and these are things that if ordinarily someone is not being funded or have access to funding, then it's going to be a challenge. And I know women will face this more than men. And so some form of reform around this could help. Capping spending could make it fairer in terms of the competition, so that we may be able to go into it. The final one is the post. The final one will be the post-voting violence. And for me, one of the things I think we should be, or lessons I think we should be learning out of this, is the means of getting access to the pink seat in other forms. So the challenge was that boxes were being destroyed, including pink sheet. Today, the reason why some constituencies don't have declared results is because both the EC official and some or all the political parties have lost their pink sheet. Some have access to electronic copies, but the verification is an issue. Now, I assume that if the EC had an electronic version of it, then there will be a need to compare and say, oh, okay, so this is our electronic version. Not to say we should throw away the hard copy, but then that becomes an alternative.
Additional layer.
Yes, to be able, because I think, is it Ablekum or something? They brought some of the polling returning officers, and some were saying, I thought this is it, but it has changed. And so now you are relying on human memory to be able to verify some of the figures. And I think we can use electronic to augment the hard copy one. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was an important point to land on. Folks, I lied. I said I was going to give my panelists one round. I'll mind them. Thank you very much. Go away. Bye-bye. Give them one. Bye. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, I do apologize for this, but my time is becoming weirdly out of control. So I want to plead with you to forgive me and give my panelists another warm round of applause. Yes, indeed. I want to invite my next round. But before I do that, I need somebody to do a small energizer or something for my people. Something small. I might come to do a small energizer.
I think I should.
Yeah, do a tiny energizer.
Okay, please let's be on our feet. What's it? Meye Tosa, Inti. Meye Tosa. Hello. Please let's be on our feet. So this is a simple energizer. Yes, everybody knows their name. My name is Ampoma, but for the purpose of this exercise, I'll use Grace. It's easier. So you mention your name in a song, you must follow the rhythm. Yes. For those who know it, let's go. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. You respond, Tosa, good. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a G, I'm a R, I'm a A, I'm a C, I'm a E, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm an M, I'm an A, I'm a W, I'm a U, I'm an L, I'm an A, I'm a W, I'm an O, I'm an E, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. Tosa, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. Tosa. I'm a Tosa, Tosa,
Tosa. I'm an O, I'm a B, I'm an E, I'm an N, I'm an G, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
Tosa, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
Tosa.
I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
Tosa.
I'm a G, I'm an I, I'm an L, I'm an B, I'm an E, I'm an R, I'm a T, I'm a Tosa, Tosa.
Tosa, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
Tosa.
I'm an R, I'm an E, I'm a B, I'm
a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
I'm an A, I'm a K, I'm an O, I'm a T, I'm an O, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
I'm an E, I'm an S, I'm a T, I'm an H.
Some people have forgotten how to spell their names. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a B, I'm an A, I'm an A, I'm a B, I'm an A, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa. I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
I'm a C, I'm an H, I'm an A, I'm an R, I'm a I, I'm a T, I'm a Y, I'm a Tosa, Tosa, Tosa.
I'm a Tosa.
Right. All the Tosas, sit down, please. Okay. Right. So I think as part of the discussion earlier, when Cynthia was making her submission, we indicated that we had the passage of the Affirmative Action Act. We had wanted to see if there had been any implications, any ripples. My room is emptying rapidly, yeah. So basically, we wanted to see if it had any implications after all. Some people have also indicated that, well, the way they had expected the Affirmative Action Act to impact on post-election appointments and so on has not quite happened. How do we break the barriers to gender parity? How do we break the barriers to gender equality? How do we break the barriers to gender equity? How do we break the barriers in policy making? That's what our second panel is about. It's a chat. It's a chat. It's a chat. And I have enormous pleasure in inviting A lovely round of doctors. Dr. Gloria Mensah of the University of Ghana. Auntie Gloria, do you want to join us up here? I also want to invite Dr. Nana Amma Opompia, University of Fabulous. And I also want to invite Dr. Faustina Obing Aduma, Fabulous. And then there is another person I'm yet to invite. Yes, my paper B is over here. Yes, Rebecca, please forgive me. I couldn't see you, so I was looking around quite crazily. I beg you, forgive me, eh? Okay, no, it's the same as this one. It looks like this one. Yes. I think those of you who know Rebecca, yes, indeed. Oh, maybe, yes. If you know Rebecca, you've seen affirmative action. She's Rebecca Enyonam Ahaji. Auntie Rebecca, happy to have you. So, my lovely ones on this panel, I want us to do a bit of reflection. And very quickly, so that people can engage you. I don't want to hijack you. I want my audience to have you more. I just want to get a sense, very quickly, just your take on how we're going to break the barriers in policy making. Rebecca, what are your views, the prospects for the affirmative action? The prospects that the Affirmative Action Act provides. How are we going to get past, some of the roadblocks that we've indicated? And how are we going to leverage opportunities to implement gender quotas? I hope the question is sort of clearish.
Yes, so you want me to comment on the roadblocks we've experienced so far? How we're going
to be able to leverage the affirmative action around these things to navigate a way to have the kind of results that we want.
Okay, but can I at least set a background on what the roadblocks I think are?
Yes, you can set a background,
okay,
but you set it very quickly. Okay.
No worries, Auntie Esther. Good afternoon, everyone. So, yes, we're all excited last year when the act was passed. But the unfortunate thing was the act was passed in September. By then, most of the political parties had done their primaries. And so you see that the act didn't have any effect going into the 2024 general elections. However, after the act was passed and the elections, what have we noticed? The first roadblock I would talk about is you'd realize that with the appointments that we are seeing, especially if you look in section 14 of the act, it says that the president shall ensure at least 30% representation, and the act actually segregates it. So whether it's ministerial level, at council of state, at cabinet, at district assembly, it's segmented. But then in the President's State of the Nation address, or even in most of the communications from the presidency, you see that he says, he has attained 23.2, in the sense that he has compiled or lumped up all the appointments. So that's the first roadblock. You see that in their interpretation of the law, they are lumping together all appointments. So even with their presidential staffers and all of that, you're saying that all of them are women we have appointed. But that's not what the law says. So that's a very significant roadblock we are facing, where in the interpretation of the law, instead of segmenting it, so at least at cabinet, we look at cabinet as a whole. 19, you only have 2 women. That's 10%. You don't say that you've appointed 2 men in cabinet, then you add those you've appointed as ministers and those you've appointed as presidential staffers and put them all together. So that's one challenge we're having. The second challenge we're having is that you see that with the Gender Equity Committee, it has still not been set up. And for me, the challenge is twofold. Number one, in terms of if the Gender Equity Committee is supposed to be headed by a representative of the minister or the minister herself. Now, I think he or she will find it difficult to hold government accountable, because the one who has appointed you, you're supposed to check and ensure that they are compliant. So the feasibility or the practicality of the GEC being able to ensure accountability, first holding government itself accountable, and even their counterparts in other ministries accountable, is a problem. And the second thing too is that the GEC is situated at the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. We all know that they have a very wide mandate. If you look at even the budget reports, over 90% of their budget goes into the LEAP program, and then it goes into the school feeding program. So what money is going to be left to ensure that the Gender Equity Committee that's supposed to oversee the implementation of the Act actually can do that? So that's also a very major challenge. Another thing you see is during the elections, we noticed that a lot of the female aspirants and even the incumbent MPs who lost their seats, they were victimized. And victimization is like to treat someone unfairly. Yes, other male counterparts lost their seats, but the way the women were attacked, the social media trolls, and you see the hate speech, the stereotype, and because they were arrogant and rude, that is why, and all of that. In Section 28 of the Act, it makes it an offense if you victimize someone based on her gender, hate speech, attacks, and all of that. But because it's a crime, we've not tested the law. We need the victims of the crime to actually report to the police, and then we can test the law. So that's another aspect we need to explore, because if we don't test the law, it will just be there that it's a sanction. But we might see it happen in the 2028 elections again, where you see that the women are being victimized and being attacked. So that's the third roadblock. And then the final one I would like to add is, in our advocacy, there's a bit of a public backlash about tokenism. Some feel that even though, yes, you see that the women are competent and even with the vetting process, but some just feel like you have a vice president, is not enough. So they always wave you have a vice president card in our faces. And even when the women are there, they always wave she's only there because she's a woman, not necessarily because she's competent. So we are having that kind of backlash, and some also fear that you are focusing on the women and leaving out this reverse discrimination against the men, and that's the challenge. Now, what opportunities, so how do I think we can navigate that? Currently, Auntie Sheila couldn't come here because she's before the Constitutional Review Committee. The reason why we're having some of these challenges is because in the initial draft of the law, there was reservation of seats. There were all these things that would have strengthened the political party section of the law. But then the current state of our Constitution doesn't allow that. So one way is pushing for a constitutional amendment. If we have a specific gender quota, maybe at least 30% in parliament, at least 30% in local government, if we have that in our Constitution, then now the EC can have the mandate to regulate political parties to ensure that they field in candidates. So for us right now, what the coalition is doing is pushing for the constitutional amendment so that if we have it strengthened, then it can strengthen the act. The second thing we would have to do is, I think a lot of us talked about it, we need to start lobbying way before elections. I think we met with the minister last week, Friday, and she was talking about the fact that sometimes as CSOs and women's rights organizations, our interventions come in a bit too late. And elections actually is, when we have voted, know when it starts. Apparently for most of them, the process starts before. So if we are fielded in our candidates, we need to start way before. If the Council of State elections, we had only one woman elected out of the 16 regions. And that was because most of us didn't even know Council of State elections were happening. So we have to start being more proactive, if I should use that word, and being intentional about engaging the democratic and electoral processes so that we have a step ahead and we are not always we are not always trying to now scavenge for what is left after everything has been done. Another thing too is we have to protect and support the women aspirants. We met with some young women parliamentarians, and some of them were expressing how they didn't feel supported. For example, some of them are in parliament now, and they seem to be at a loss. But if we can even find some MPs, some female MPs have left, but if we can get them mentorship so that they know how to navigate things, it feels as if we get the women there, we leave them alone, and they don't have that strong support. So as CSOs too, we should target those who are in there now. Right now we have 40 MPs, 30 NDC, 10 NPP. We've engaged the head of the Women's Caucus. We're trying to see how do we engage them and actually provide support for them, because they will set the tone as how the entire society would also rally behind having more female leaders. And then the last thing I would say as a recommendation on how we can navigate this also is we have to be very intentional about providing funding and support for the institutional structures that already exist. Like I said, GEC, if you look at the budget of the ministry, they can't work on their own. So we as CSOs must source for funding for them to be able to do their work. They have to do a plan of action. They have to do a baseline report that is monitor every sector, all the private sector, where everybody is. It involves money. And even for the coalition as well, if you want to do the sensitization advocacy, media space is not free. Traveling to the ends of the country is not free. Even engaging these stakeholders with parliamentarians is not free. Having the LI enacted will also come at a cost. So we need to be intentional about financing the existing structures that are helping with implementation so that it can be more effective. I think for me, those are my takes. Thank you.
Becky, that's a great load to digest. Thank you very much for that. Right, thank you. So, talking about all of this, she landed on the issue of resources to help the work. So that naturally brings me to Gloria, Dr. Gloria Afful, gender and taxation. I want to talk about money and women, how the current tax policies impact on women differently. I would also be excited if you bring us some insights to the issues of tax justice, because it's not impacting on women differently, but different categories and types of women located in different spaces in the economy, and then whatever reflections you have on promoting more equity in that regard.
Thank you, Auntie Esther. So a lot of the times, I think when we talk about revenue mobilization or taxes and women, it's more difficult to imagine how, let's say you have a neutral tax. We are all paying a tax of, say, 15%. Why should we care if the impact will be different on women? Well, I want to relate it to what the current government promised and what we are seeing. And the first thing we'll talk about is the e-levy. So why was the e-levy introduced? It is a fact that the Ghanaian economy is informal. So, as Cynthia said, about 80% of our labor force is in the informal sector. If you look at the composition of our tax, a lot of it comes from the formal sector. Okay, so that is also a fact. And so there's that worry that we should be able to get more tax from the informal sector. That is not wrong to think about it, and so that was the essence of the e-levy. The e-levy was supposed to go to the informal sector. But oftentimes when we think of taxes in the informal sector, we think that the informal sector is very uniform. But the reality is that the informal sector is segmented. So you have different groups in the informal sector. And it is funny how our laws define, well, I'm saying funny in quotes, defines tax. So taxation or tax in Ghana is the one that is, that is applied by the Commissioner General of the GRA and collected by the boss, right? So the tolls, the charges, the fees that we collect from the informal sector per our laws, they are not taxed. So we will classify them as non-tax revenue. So when we are thinking about taxes, it is very easy for people to think that then the informal sector is not paying tax. So that was the essence of bringing the e-levy. But what we have seen, and thankfully the e-levy has been removed, but then there have been several studies that have reviewed that the e-levy had a disproportionate impact on women-owned businesses. So if you look at the sectors that women dominate, they were the ones that were greatly impacted by the e-levy. And in fact, there were studies that, in fact, if you do studies and you interview women differently and men differently, men often were indifferent about the e-levy. But then women expressed the burden with which they were, they had to go through with regard to the e-levy. And that was a classic example. Now, if you look at the direct tax system itself, if you check your pay slip, those of us in the formal sector, we are paying the same, tax rate. So explicitly, you cannot say that it's, there's some gender biases when it comes to the direct taxes. But the biases usually come from the reliefs or the exemptions, okay? So for instance, if you have, I don't know how many of you know about this aged dependent relief. So if you are taking care of an elderly relative or your mother or your father who is about 60 years plus.
Excuse me, I'm 60 something.
So I tell that in that case, whoever is your primary caregiver is entitled to, well, it's very small, 100 cedis or so a year. I don't know how many of us are. Yeah, it's very small. But you see, so it tells us that we are not even aware of that. But you see, if you look at who provides care, it's mostly women. So if you have a relief that gives both male and female caregivers the same amount, even though the man or the male person will come as a work if you are engaged in some small businesses. And so it is unfair. So all these have a way of impacting women differently, and these are the less obvious, or what we call the implicit biases when we talk about taxes. In terms of the reflection, I think that maybe I would say in the past 5 years, for me, I've seen a lot of work being done in this area, at least trying to articulate the fact that our tax system have different impact on women, which is very good. And I can say for the tax justice network, I can say that for Netright, and I think even for Netright, in less than a year, this is the second program that I'm participating in. So we are doing well with that. And as I said, I think in terms of what we are doing, we have to maybe focus our message well, because if you say that our tax system discriminates women, a lot of people find it difficult to believe that. So we have to focus our message in terms of how it treats women differently. In that, like I said, with the direct tax system, there are no explicit biases. So for instance, if you go to other jurisdictions like Morocco, the tax system is such that they tax joint income. And when you do that, when you are taxing, let's say, a couple household, if you are taxing myself and my husband, our income together, typically it draws the woman into a higher tax bracket, even though women are more likely to be the lower income earners. Ours is different, which is a good one. And so you cannot really say that we are discriminating against women because I'm taxed differently, my husband is also taxed differently. So I'm not unnecessarily pushed into a higher tax bracket if we have put our incomes together. But because the biases are with regard to the less obvious one, which I said, like the reliefs, the exemptions, I think that is where we should focus our message on whenever we are advocating for a fair tax system. We need to hammer on the reliefs. The fact that when I said 1,000 cedis a year for caregivers of aged relatives, it's so small. We need to advocate for
100.
100. No, I said 1,000 cedis a year. Yes, 1,000 cedis, which is very small. 1,000 for 12 months is very small. It doesn't reflect the living standards that we find ourselves. So, there's a lot that needs to be done. And then also, I think that it shouldn't be for, the same amount for both men and women, given the work that female caregivers do in our homes, okay? And then another thing that we have all heard about the VAT reforms, in the current budget, even though we don't know how the reforms are going to be done. But it is a fact that consumption expenditure is gendered. So if you pick female type of households and male type of households, you will notice that women typically spend on certain items, education, health, clothing. If you take male type of households, when I say male type of households, we are looking at households that probably has a male head, or it's dominated by men. They also tend to spend more on, say, housing, recreation, alcohol, and so on. And so consumption is gendered. Aside from that, we know there are certain goods that are exclusively consumed by women, like sanitary pads. So it was a good initiative that we saw last year, that the VAT on sanitary pads were removed. In fact, for the locally made sanitary pads, but the imported ones, I think the tariff was reduced. It was a good step, but I think that we generally have to look at hygiene products in general, to see how we can lessen the burden of the VAT or the burden of indirect taxes on women. That's another step that we can take. And then, as we think about the reforms, I think this is a very good platform that we need to talk more in terms of the composition of the committee that will do the reform, because a lot of the times, maybe it will not be deliberate, but if you have a male committee, they may lose sight of these things. And so I think we need to push more for women's representation. Yes, we know that they are going to do it with the IMF, but then the good thing is that these days the IMF also, in a way, has allowed the country to come up with their own program. So they are just going to guide and direct you. You are supposed to bring on board what you want to do. So if you have a good representation in terms of women there, then we'll be able to come up with VAT reforms that will help lessen the burden on women, whether as consumers or women producers in that regard. Then finally, one thing that I also want to comment on in terms of our current tax system is the removal of the VAT on the emission levy, and then we are told that there will be they will remove the VAT on vehicle insurance. I think that hasn't been done yet. Well, the effects, for me, I think it will be inconsequential on women, except if you want to imagine that a lot of women own vehicles. And those who own vehicles, then I'm talking about the different groups of women, are more likely to be those who are in the middle class or those who are relatively better off in terms of the living standard. What about those low down there? Okay, so unless, of course, we want to imagine that the removal of this VAT on a vehicle insurance or the emission levy will trickle down to a reduction in transport fares, then we can begin to talk about, the impact on the ordinary woman or the vulnerable. Otherwise, I think it would have even been better to probably target it on just commercial vehicles and mechanism put in place such that once you are removing the VAT on motor insurance, or you are removing the emission levy, then those who bought the commercial vehicle, who are likely or more likely to be the low-income earners or vulnerable in our society, will be the ones to benefit more. So in that case, you redistribute income in such a way that, to some extent, there will be some equity. So maybe I'll just pause and then we can have a more conversation later.
Thank you very much. This is very exciting, very, very, very educative. Because, engendering, the implicit assumptions and all of this about, the VAT reforms, the emissions levies, where it will hit, engendering the reliefs and the exemptions. I've had an interesting session. Thank you very much. Now I'm looking forward to furthering the discussion around financial inclusion and digitalization, gender gaps, women's. We are touting the technology revolution and the opportunities they offer. And everybody says everybody's mother has a mobile phone, and they're able to tell you when the funeral is, what the funeral cloth is, because they can snap it and show it to you and all that. Auntie Nanama, Doctor, please, do you want to talk to us about it? What are the gender gaps in access? What are the opportunities? And how can we strengthen women's capacity to optimize these opportunities? Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. So, my colleague, hello, can you? Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah.
My colleague talked about the e-levy. I mean, the e-levy is also riding on the back of electronic platforms. So we have the momos, and there are lots of opportunities in there. So we see that women can also take loans on the momo platforms. It's safer, they don't have to carry their money around, it's efficient, it's easy to use and all of that. But there's also research that shows, so people like Pesa White and Gisa, for example, Anidoho, there's quite a bit of research that shows that women are less likely to use online platforms. UNESCO also says that about 50% of the women in Ghana are non-literate. They also have less money to buy credits. So there's research that shows that there is inequalities embedded in these platforms that we are using. So if we talk about digitalization and financial inclusion, even though it's useful, there are still certain things that we need to address. So let me first of all distinguish between digitizing and digitalization. So when you say you are digitizing something, it's like this paper, births and death, they converted all the hard copies of the birth certificate into digital copies, right? That's digitizing. Digitalization, then the processes that are involved in, for example, giving somebody a credit, all of those processes are now taken online, and they have moved away from the paper now, and they are doing it in an electronic way. So then the question I ask myself is, what are we digitalizing? If there are inequalities in the paper system or the processes, and we say that we are going into digitalization, it means that we are even creating a bigger gap. Because, like I said, the women there are all of these disparities along the way that women are having to deal with. I was sitting with an old lady, I think about a month ago, and she was trying to make a Momo transfer. You know, the thing about the USSD is that if you don't hurry up and type in the numbers, then they will say MMI something. And this lady was trying and trying. Yes. So then the thing is that Momo platforms, who are they made for? Young, agile people who know how to use USSDs and online platforms. What about the older person whose motor skills are going down? Then what the lady did was she called a Momo vendor across the street to come and help her take money off her wallet. What does that mean for security on her phone? Now, if you look at the NDCC manifesto, they talk about the fact that they are going to do digital education on financial inclusion. If you know that 50% are non-literate, how do you provide digital education for non-literate women? Rural women, we talk about rural telephony. It's been translated into the budget now, rural telephony, which is good. 20% of us are still off the grid. What does that mean? Okay, when we look at younger people who are not able to buy the credit and all of these disparities that exist, what does that mean for digitalization and financial inclusion? So the point I'm making is that you don't just say you want to digitalize things, you need to go a step back and look at some of these inequalities that are embedded within the system and start tackling them before you even get to the point where you say you are providing that education or something like that for them. The other point I want to talk about, and I think they've done a good job migrating the manifesto promises into the budget. They talk about the Women's Development Bank, which is good for financial inclusion, right? The Women's Development Bank, in the budget, they talk about 51 million cedis, right, that is going to be set aside as a fund for that. If you look at the universal banks, they are required to have a capitalization of 400 million so that they can underwrite a wider and bigger transactions. and then the Women's Bank get 51 million. What does that mean? Are they going to operate as universal banks? Are they going to be savings and loans, credit union? All of these things. So I think that it's good. I mean, symbolically, I think my colleague also talked about it, the fact that it has been said. In fact, in the budget, it says it has anchored, the budget is anchored on 3 things, right? Hope for democracy. The second one is made in Ghana through the 24-hour economy. And the third one, vulnerable people, women and young people. A gentleman here was talking about young people. So it's good. But I think, basic cliche, but the devil is in the details. In the universal banks, I think about 3 of them had what we call the women's desk. After November 2024, there was a directive by Bank of Ghana that all of them should have women's desks. How is the Women's Development Bank going to work? Are they going to work through the development desks of the universal banks? Or are we going to have legs in the communities and in the regions? So it's still very, very unclear how this is going to happen. So I think that what I'm suggesting is we need to step back and look at the details. Start from places where women are seen. Where do women borrow? Susu systems. That is where women are usually seen. How are we migrating some of the learnings from Susu systems into the Women's Development Bank? We see also that women are usually in the non-bank financial institutions. They have exorbitant interest rates, but fortunately, if you look at the budget says that the Women's Development Bank is going to take care of those exorbitant rates, right? So we are not going to have that. How are we going to use the lending principles of non-bank financial institutions in the Women's Development Bank? So I think that we should start from where women do well, and then the lessons from there, then we incorporate them into the Women's Development Bank. And then ensure, like my colleague was saying, if women are not called to the table, if you ask men, she talked about sanitary towels, so let me use that example. If you ask men to design sanitary towels, we might get handkerchiefs. You understand? Because the feel, you need to be, there's something in academia, they call something, what do you call it, phenomenology, the experience, okay? You have to experience having a menstruation to be able to know how to design it for somebody who is using it. So like she said, I want to hammer on the fact that it's important for us to bring women to the table to design all of these products in the Women's Development Bank and all these other financial products and services we have. So yes, there are opportunities, but there are also some gaps that need to be addressed.
City is going. And you need social protection because you are vulnerable. So, Auntie Faustina, please talk to me a bit about social protection and care in all of these things, because even productive inclusion, moving from where women are doing well and, the informal ways of supporting women are still a very big part of the discussion of securing the well-being of people. So, Auntie Faustina, please, Dr. Faustina Obeng Adwa, please take us on. What's the status of social protection system for you now? How responsive are they? To what extent have we taken on unpaid care work? Because that's a lot of the spaces that women operate in. And then, what would be your recommendations for making social protection more gender responsive? Yeah. Take it up there. After she finishes, I'll just open it up so everybody can engage with them, and then we can do lunch. I dare not unpack what they're saying. It's too rich and solid. I mean, all 4 of you are doing an amazing job. Go ahead, Auntie. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Auntie Esther. So I think it's a bit safe to say that we are currently experiencing some economic challenges in the country. And history has taught us that any time a country is going through economic challenges, there's a lot of expectation and burden on women's labor for both productive and reproductive activities. And for that reason, social protection has been a key part of many developing countries' agenda. And so to speak, in Ghana, we have taken it serious. I mean, from the time of the fallout of the structural adjustment, the PAMSCA to the poverty reduction strategy papers. But I think in the post-2000s, we have seen that government is taking social protection serious with policies that are coming out. And so social protection has been a key part of every political campaign. We've seen a lot of social interventions, and in this campaign too, we had a lot of social interventions being led, discussed in the campaign messages. So the NDC really put up a lot of bold social interventions to protect the economy. And indeed, the resetting agenda was supposed to center vulnerable people and make sure that we can all have prosperity. So for women, social protection on one hand is for what women themselves can get as vulnerable groups of people. But also social protection is important to ensure that many people within the country do not slip into poverty, such that then there would be more demand on women's unpaid labor. And so I want to center the social protection issues on a wider framing of what social protection is supposed to be. So I want to look at social protection at the protective side of social protection, and social protection at the preventive side of social protection. Unfortunately, as a country, we are focused a lot on the protection side of social protection. So we have a lot of interventions. I mean, LEAP has been mentioned, the NHIS, the capitation grant, the school feeding program, the labor-intensive public work, which was supposed to go towards the preventive side of social protection, but unfortunately hasn't been implemented well. So we see that if you had a chance to look at the NDC manifesto, indeed, almost every section of the manifesto has some sort of social intervention coined as part of an employment program. So the manifesto has two legs. Maybe one is on building the economy based on employment generation, but also, of course, stabilizing the city. And then the other part is to really protect the vulnerable persons within the society. And so we see that the budget is usually an attempt by a government to sort of bring spine and life into its intervention. So I'm going to look at what the NDC said in terms of what they have actually put in their 2025 budget that they are doing. So in terms of social protection, we see that they really are going to improve nominally on the visible protective instruments that we have. So we see that they are increasing the LEAP allocation from 728 million to 953 million. And by that, they also want to increase the number of beneficiary households from 350,000 to 400,000. Now, what it means is that with the increase in households and an increase in budget, every LEAP beneficiary household would get 2,383 cedis a year. That is what the government is going to do for the household. That is roughly something less than 200 cedis a month for these households as some cash transfer that is supposed to empower the household. Then we also see an increase in capitation grants. We also see an increase in school feeding, such that every child is now going to be moved from 1 cedi 50 pesos per meal to 2 cedis. Now, nominally, if you look at the budget, you will see that it's talking about increases. And if you look at the figures, you actually see increases. But then if you juxtapose these figures against the current economic situation, I mean, what would a household do with 200 cedis a month? Is 2 cedis enough to give a child a hot meal per day? These are some of the questions that we still would want to ask. But I think fundamentally for some of these old social protection issues, the challenge has been, in fact, aside the funding issues, which means that we are not able to do it on a larger scale and the amounts are also not substantial, there's also a challenge of really identifying the categories of people that we call vulnerable, those who are truly vulnerable that deserve some of these interventions. And I think from the 2015 social protection policy, the policy highlighted the necessity of that Ghana household register. And we see that consistently taking the pain as a country to really develop that household register is something that we probably have not paid a lot of attention to. And so no matter how much money or budget allocations we make for the social protection interventions, if fundamentally our ability to really target the proper vulnerable households are challenged, then we may be making interventions all right, but we may not be reaching the groups of people that are supposed to be reached. Now, what we also see is that the government is also introducing new social protection policies. A lot of them have been in the public discussions. The No Fees Stress Initiative, the free tertiary education for persons with disability, then also Mahama Cares, the free healthcare policy, but also free sanitary pads for schoolgirls. Now, I want to pick on one of these, which is the free tertiary education for persons with disability. It is a welcome news in the discourse around persons with disability. But I think fundamentally one thing we are losing sight of is that underlying this policy is the assumption that persons with disability are already finishing high school. And so they are going to go into tertiary education where they would benefit from this policy. But our analysis around the inclusive education policy, which is supposed to take care of basic education up to what we have now categorized as high school to be part of the basic education. As a country, we have haphazardly implemented that policy. And so this is a welcome news. But then the proportion of persons with disability that would actually get to this level to benefit from the free tertiary education would be woefully inadequate. So I think one thing we can also do to really ensure that this policy becomes beneficial to persons with disabilities, to ensure that the foundational policy, which is the inclusive education policy, is implemented to ensure that persons with disability can go through the basic education and then eventually benefit from this free tertiary education. Now let me go to the preventive side of social protection. As a country, we haven't really done well, because preventing people from slipping into poverty is fundamentally hinged on making sure that people can earn a decent livelihood. And so this country, we talk about employment as if employment is just anything, but employment is a fundamental component of social protection. And so if we can demand care, if we can demand health from our government, we can also demand that the requirements to ensure that people can earn a livelihood decently is available in the country. And this is one of the, I think, I would say, enduring challenges for Ghana in the last 2 or 3 decades. The fact that we are not able to really create a conducive environment for people to secure employment that is decent, or for people to set up businesses and run them decently to secure their livelihoods. And so what we see in this country is that, and this is not just this government, we see that successive governments would always have some sort of initiatives around employment, carved with several slogans, with several agencies and several agencies set around those things. I think fundamentally we have to start questioning some of these things, which obviously look at a more overt ways to address the challenge without fundamentally looking at what is wrong with our economy and people's inability to really earn a decent livelihood. And so this government as well enumerated a lot. In fact, from the first page of the manifesto to the last page of the manifesto, every paragraph you will see something on this would generate more jobs, this will create employment. It's spread throughout the manifesto. And we see that also in the budget. So they talk about the 24-hour economy, which is supposed to be the anchor to ensure that that office that is employing just one person will now run 3 shifts and employ 3 people. And these 3 people, we hope that in the public sector, these 3 people may be going on the public budget, which at this current juncture, we know that it may not be possible. So that promise of the 24-hour economy, we are yet to see the policy itself and how it's going to be fleshed out. And then the NDC also says that they are going to make inputs into the current the draft labor bill to ensure that it caters for the 24-hour economy. So these are opportunities to make some inputs into what really these interventions, and the many ones like the Echumera, the digital jobs, and then a lot of the interventions like agriculture for jobs, which is quite similar to the PFJ, And then they also talk about rapid industrialization, which in all its dimension looks like a 1D1F, except that this is not at the district level, this is promising at the regional level. So we have a lot of work to do in terms of fleshing out the details of these many initiatives with a lot of budgetary allocations. Now, let me go into care work and state-supported care infrastructure. So care work and the unpaid side of care work woefully depends on women's unpaid labor. And then if you even look at the paid side of care work, where people are doing it in a domestic setting or they are even doing it in a market setting, it's still dependent on women's labor. And for us as a country, if you look at the policies that we have, our governments seem to absolve itself from direct care. So our policies would always write with a bold statement that the primary responsibility of care, it's within the domestic setting, the household, the family, the society. And so what our policies, from healthcare to caring for persons with disabilities, to caring for the aged, to caring for children, everything will talk about the household as the central unit, which fundamentally is not wrong per se. But then it talks about the state providing the support services or the infrastructure for the household to carry out these care dimensions effectively. And that is where we see a lot of silences in how our state thinks that they are providing that support infrastructure. I mean, we see that for a long time, from post-independence Ghana, the state has been very active in healthcare provision. And then we saw a lot of attempts to make healthcare free in the immediate post-independence era. The cash and carry system came, but the state went back to the national health insurance as a way of the state providing that care infrastructure. So we see that healthcare has some improvements from the state, but I think fundamentally the NHIS has had a lot of challenges as the main state-supported healthcare infrastructure. And we see that the current budget says that it's going to address that by making sure that the national health insurance levy, everything goes into health infrastructure. So that's a welcome news. But I think one area that we want to look at, and what the manifesto promise was going to amend the National Health Insurance Policy or the Act. What we hope would happen in that act is that a lot of the exemptions would be re-looked at. I mean, the act promises that it would reduce the aged exemption to 60, such that now if you are 60 years, you would be exempted. But what we also see is that many of the critical care that the aged and persons with disabilities need are not covered within the National Health Insurance scheme. So that would be another thing that we may want to look at. It's not just about the exemptions, but if people are included in the scheme, what aspects of their health care can the scheme provide for? And this is very critical for persons with disabilities and also the aged. And I think there is some fundamental silences in the budget, not just this budget, but also successive governments. That is the active aging fund and then the disability fund. These funds are very key to ensure that many of the key interventions that persons with disability and the aged need are available. But subsequently, we see that the policies came, but then the successive governments have been silent on some of these issues. Now to the issue of how do we really ensure that our care and social protection system can be gender responsive. I think we need to start from a very fundamental principle of recognizing what care really is for a country. We seem to take care for granted, partly because a lot of it is done at the domestic level. It's also unpaid. And so many of our studies around the economy doesn't include the unpaid care work. And so if we are doing our economic analysis for all the sectors that are contributing to the economy, we'll write for agriculture, for industrialization, for education, for the service sector, and then unpaid care work is totally absent. But for all those of us that are sitting in this room, if you have children, you are able to be here because somebody is taking care of your child. And that is an economic activity. That is a whole sector of the economy that is contributing to productivity. That is totally not captured within our policies. Then I also think that one thing we can really do is to have ways of ensuring that beyond domestic provision of care, I mean, it's a fact that there is a care deficit in this country, and the deficit is there because you can't stretch women's labor for care provision beyond a certain level. If you want quality of care, you cannot expect a woman who has 24 hours a day to provide care services that require 30 hours. You can't stretch it beyond that. So the state has to step in ensuring that the infrastructure that would support provision of care and lessen the burden of care work, including, say, a cheaper form of electricity, a cheaper form of energy, but also ensuring that these things, in terms of their physical accessibility, can reach so many households are available. Then there is also the need for the state to come in and support direct care provision for the aged, for vulnerable, orphan and vulnerable children, but also for the aged. I think I would leave it here.
Okay,
Thank
great.
you.
Thank you very much. I think that give her a warm round of applause. Because there's a lot to be said, and she's covered a lot of ground, and all of it was absolutely necessary to have a discussion around, and we are deeply grateful. I'm deeply grateful to all four of you. A lot of richness around this non-existent fire, that kind of thing. Folks, I want to open this up. I really want to get you out of this room at 1:30, but I want to open this up so that if there are contributions, reflections, questions, I mean, they've given us a lot of food for thought. Any reflections? Yes. You know what? I was going to call you. I mean, if nobody had lifted their hand, I was coming straight at you. I swear. You, number one. Charity, number two. Vera, number three. I mean, the people are packaged. This lady, she used to be Miss Awiti. She's something else now. But so Miss Awiti, you were my number one. Vera, you were my number two. Fortunately for you people, Charity has come, so Charity is number two. Yeah, Miss Awiti, please go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so thank you very much for all the points that have been raised. I think I was very happy when you mentioned the issue about the women's desk. Because yesterday I had a funny experience at one of the banks. And they had put very nice, bold flyer, women's desk. And a gentleman had walked in and was speaking Twi. The lady behind the women's desk couldn't speak Twi. So then I kept, and then she's the one managing the women's desk. So I kept wondering, you cannot speak Twi, and you are the one supposed to be dealing with, because you have market women, then there are women on the flyer, and so if a market woman comes to you, how are you going to be able to resolve the issues that we have? It goes to say that we still do not understand the issues when it comes to working in the space of gender and inclusion. Because for a bank to have a whole women's desk, because I asked one of the, what is the women's desk for? I asked one lady, and she was like, oh, she'll wait for the person to come. Then that interaction happened. I was like, let me not even start a war in this bank. Let me do what I came to do and go. Because it was quite disappointing that for the one who is supposed to be behind the women's desk cannot even speak. I'm not trying to say she should know all languages, but at least, and I'm an Ewe, so nobody should come and kill the messenger. But you know, Twi is like a basic language that we usually would interact with. So if you can't speak Twi, then there's a challenge. Do we really understand why we are saying we should have a women's desk in the bank? Are we really, when we are talking about gender, just like what Becky said, the president is saying 23 point something, but when you go into the nitty-gritties, you realize that across board, we really haven't attained that.
and if you unpack the DCs, it's even scarier.
Yes, and you see, you know what happens? You'll be there 1 week, and then they'll come and post the women's posting, say, please, so your head is making you jiggy, like, oh, they are putting the people, Then you see one big flyer for an event and you just see one woman. Then you see that you'll be lucky. I saw one program recently in Kumasi, and only men. And I told myself I was going to say no woman should show up at that event.
I will show up
because
good.
It was. I was going to say no woman should show up. One point I saw women there, but I didn't think that women should show up because if you are talking about issues about development and you don't have even a woman on board, here you are talking about women MPs are supposed to be. You're talking about MPs and no woman is on board. Then what are we going to sit down there to do? Is it just to tick boxes? We are just ticking boxes in this country when it comes to inclusion. We are not really breaking down the barriers that are there because we don't even understand the social and systemic barriers that are in place against women, especially the social ones. We don't understand. We are talking about women are not treated fairly. Even when it comes to the E-levy, we don't even understand why women are the ones who are the most affected by that. But when women are the ones who are giving the house the chop money as it were, and so they are the ones that have to go and do the buying, which means that you've given the woman 500 cedis her mobile money account, taxes are just fun. Then now, because she's a woman, she's also mandated to also add some of her money to it. There are some women who who say that, oh, my husband is taking care of the children's fees, so I will take care of the home. And then if the woman decides to start to calculate the amount of money she is spending on that, then you go into issues when they are even single parenting and women are demanding for certain terms of settlement. And then the man will say, I'll take care of fees, you take care of that. I don't have money to do that, so you take care of that. You know, there are so many systemic barriers that we still don't understand as a country, and we just keep sitting down taking the boxes. I'm grateful, we are all grateful for the women before us who have made us understand a lot of issues, but I'm saying that we don't understand it. The breakdown is a lot, and we really need to get into the nitty-gritties of it and hold our government accountable. They should stop the one-day show of 20 appointments, and then at the end of the way you actually go and count it, they are just they've done well, but they can do better. And we all can also do better as women. Thank you.
Thank you. There is room for improvement. Charity, Doctor.
Yes, thank you very much. And congratulations. We really enjoyed the presentations. When I was listening to the one from
who am I?
I was just telling myself, how long can we do? Oh, okay. You can't hear me from there, right? Okay. How long can we stand and sit and stay? We need to.
Hey, Rebecca and Uncle.
So we have learned a useful lesson. I'm very happy to see so many young people, very energetic and pushing the gender agenda, which means that some of us.
Maybe it's our question. Go
yes.
ahead, please.
So what I'm trying, what I want to actually touch on is the issue of taxation. Issue of funding, there is so much ignorance around taxation in this country, even for those of us who say we are educated. So many taxes, and I was even asking, because some of the women, they don't even know, and we don't, unfortunately, in places like Nigeria, which people think that is chaotic and things, those days when we were there, it was very clear how you can get refund for taxes, the things that you are entitled to and all. It was quite easy. So for many years that I was working, I never, every time I said, you were talking about, what you are entitled to, how do they call it when you are paying your tax, the reliefs. I went several times to our accounts office. I said, okay, I'm taking care of my old lady, this. Then they'll tell you that if your husband is a head of family, then he's entitled to these reliefs. The women are not entitled to this. I never got any reliefs throughout my career as somebody who was paying tax. It is a fact. And then now, the taxes that is only in Ghana that we pay, so we all go to the state market, the poor and the rich. And yet the tax burden is so heavy. And we don't know how to get relief. So we need a lot of education around tax. And we are saying that Sikaye Muja, the little that we have to, they take it away. And we don't get any relief. We can't even make demands for infrastructure. Look at the markets where the women are. Terrible. That is why one little thing, there's fire, and the whole place is bent down, and they start from ground one. I mean, it's ground zero. How long can we continue that? So without the money, you can't go into politics. So if we cannot pay attention to what the resources are available to women, how they can get relief, how they can even not be taxed several times over. Because some of them pay taxes several times because they don't know what to do. So I think it's an area that we really need to pay attention to, tax education. And also areas, and I think that for funding and things, if we don't really pay attention to how we can get funding to get into politics, for many years, after some of us are long gone, we'll still be where we are. So one, the education around tax is very important. Two, how we can get resources, how we can support one another. We should push government. The women fund for all these things we've been talking about it severally, but I think it's time we do something about it. And the issue about visibility, we should, in Kenya, when even for radio program, television programs, there are some very vibrant women associations who ensure that if you are going to empanel, they want to see representation of men and women, television, radio, wherever. If you don't, they will come after you. It's just unfortunate that in Ghana, our act, the Affirmative Action Act, we are having an act instead of a commission. Because in Kenya, because there's a commission, they can take government on. When they are appointment, they say no, this and this and this and that. But because the thing is sitting in the ministry, it's going to be a little bit challenging because when we're trying to push it, they took out all the sanctions. So we just have a framework, something that we have to work with. So we need to begin to think as women groups, advocates, and gender specialists, how can we get this act to work for us? Otherwise, it's going to be another document on paper because of the lack of teeth to bite.
I'm sort of harvesting all of it. Now I'll give all of you one because there are things that are being said which venture into your area. So just wait a bit. Yeah. Charity, I hope you finished. Yeah, Vera. Yes, ma'am. Yes, go ahead. Share? You don't know, champion mommy. I see everything behind.
Thank you very much. Let me make it brief so that they can conclude. And
yes,
for me, Becky and all the other ladies there, thumbs up, because this is really good information. I was telling my brother here that maybe we need to capture certain parts of it and give it to the political parties, because the information you've given about the women's banking stuff will be good for the party to really know and input some of these new ideas into what they are trying to channel. It will be good for the country.
Political parties, but it's good.
Exactly, but at least that's the starting point, because they are trying to cook out something. Then they know what the realities are to be able to incorporate. And for the issues about the Affirmative Action Act, maybe if I can say briefly that we need to see the act as something for the entire country.
Right.
It needs to rest with an entity. That's why it is situated within the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection. But which other agency could have handled this, since the object of the act, Becky, you know, the object of the act says that it has to affect all aspects of our life as a society by ensuring the attainment of gender equity. And to achieve that, I'm sure you know it is not out of place to say that the chairperson of the Gender Equity Committee should be the person for social protection. The Colossus for social protection is the one moderating the show herself. And so I'm sure when you were talking about a lot of the gender responsiveness of our social protection system and paid care work and all that, she was smiling, but because of her new position, she didn't want to come in. But I'm sure a lot is being done in that direction. And for something like LEAP, for instance, if you put it in a blanket statement like 200 cedis, you know, the household is based on the number of persons in the household. So sometimes I feel when we are communicating, we should give the full information. Otherwise, people will take things out of context and it will become like 200 cedis for entire household. What can it do for them? But it depends whether it's a 1-member household, 2-member, 3, and it's graduates. Like as you are more, you get more. And so with every little thing that we are churning out today, for me, the good thing is that it is good information for us to move on as a country with, and it can help us for us to achieve the development we all seek. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now, the last submission is from a lady. You can behave like all the old ladies have done in the past. I concur. All that you said, I go. Not I concur, I concur. And then we go ahead. Yes, ma'am. I'm giving you the last word. Yeah. One on the mic, ma'am. Yes, please. Yeah. Then I'll give you guys.
So, I don't know if I should say I concur, because it looks like almost everything I wanted to say has been said, though. But I think with what Becky said and a lot about the affirmative action bill and all around it, I think with the setting up of the Gender Equity Committee, probably I think we should all push for it, because if the Gender Equity Committee was set up before the appointment, they could have made sure that they hold the president and the president accountable. I remember I went for a program, I think with the speaker, and he was talking about the committees and the parliamentary service, and one person indicated that the committees in parliament, that most of them do not have women on it. And he mentioned that since he has been making sure that he will hold the president accountable, he has called for all those committees to be held, and then he will make sure that women are put on board. I think Madam Esther mentioned that with the local government, the MMDC, the appointments, it looks like a lot of them are men. I was talking to Beauty and she was mentioning that I was saying that it looks like a lot of women do not really give themselves out to even be appointed, because when you look through the list, in some areas you realize 16 people, just one is a woman. So maybe I think we should also try and encourage women. Tell them, okay, you have to go. You should go, try, go. And maybe with that, we can tell the leaders that, okay, the women are there. Because when you look at the list of even women who have even submitted themselves or given themselves out, it's very little. So even if they want to appoint all the women, they will still not get to the 30%. So I think we should get a lot of women to go. And then when they go, we can just keep them on their toes and make the leadership, get them on board. And I think in our organizations, we should also try and our best to also educate everybody, because sometimes you talk to people and they don't even know what is even in the bill. A lot of men do not know, and some men even think we are forcing ourselves. You've not done anything. We do all the campaign, and you think when it gets to appointment, we should just give you all the appointments. But we have to make them understand that there are systemic barriers. There are issues that make it very difficult for women. Even getting finances to even go and campaign and all those things is very difficult. So it's very important for women to be given that 30% or what's not. So I think that's what I have to say. But I think everybody has said a lot, and I think it's good.
Well done. That's a fabulous submission. Yes, Charity.
There is a point that she made concerning the women offering themselves. But I wanted to
I didn't want to unpack that thing at all, because time is not on my side.
Because we are learning.
Yes.
And what happened this year, I don't know about the previous years, but at least I had an opportunity to meet some of these women who actually offer themselves, highly educated, well known in their communities, providing a lot of services to the communities. What happened to some of them who I met, about 10 of them, that they were not even allowed to appear before a panel.
Yeah, it's a very complex situation, so because in the past, the contention has been made that women don't offer themselves. But you see, the beauty of a position that is appointive or appointed is that you can't put your money where your mouth is and say, so long as somebody who meets all of my criteria comes and is of this category I want to project, I will appoint them. I also know a number of very capable women who expressed interest in going forward, but they didn't get even to the interview stage, which means that there are a number of factors or considerations that still don't allow us to be genuine in our commitment to promoting women. And we need to dismantle that very, very, very quickly. The women are offering themselves more because a lot of work has gone on. About, when was it? 2001. My own experience then brought home to me the importance of making myself available. But 2001, that was 24 years ago. A lot has happened since. So I think we should continue forging, educating, advocating, providing evidence, and engaging and supporting as best as we can all of these entities. And you see, the minister would be the natural chair of the GEC, but that ministry is massive. It is huge, and you haven't even begun to resolve half of your problems. The domestic violence, you are talking about gender fund. You are amusing me. Domestic violence fund, disaster management, I mean, so the problems that ministry has to resolve are huge, but the resources are not commensurate with it. My panelists, 1 minute, 30 seconds, and then we go home. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll start. I think I just want to highlight that as a country, our lens on social protection are too much focused on the protective side. If we don't do so much on the preventive side, we are going to get a lot of our population slipping into poverty, and we just don't have enough resources to protect them.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I think I just want to say that implementing this act is a collective effort. It cannot just be the work of the committee or just the coalition, but individually. And also going beyond the public sector, we need to understand that the act covers the private sector as well. And so if we lost the window here, we can still make interventions in the private sector. In the private sector, the women can get more empowered financially and they can move into the public sector. So let's not only focus on the public, but let's also focus on the private sector.
Fabulous, yes.
So for a budget that says that it anchors itself with supporting women and the young people, if you look at the objectives that have been set for the fiscal objectives and the SDG goals, SDG 5 is missing from the budget. The AU Agenda 17, these two talk about equity, women equality, are both missing from the budget. So when we talk about just talk, it's real. But what I'm going to say is that the good thing is that in the manifesto and even in the budget, they talk about partnering with CSOs and other partners. So I think we should seize that opportunity and come to the table and insist that some of these details are spelled out in implementing these policies. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, finally, I also want to make the point that, unfortunately, not just with this budget, and if you look at the way our tax policies have been designed, typically they are designed to raise revenue. Okay. But then there's evidence that you can use your tax policies also to achieve inclusivity. And that is what is missing in our tax system, not just this one, but obviously if you look back into, the history, that's what is missing. So I agree with what Auntie Charity said. So as we're doing the education, yes, for us the taxpayers, we also have to make sure that we draw the policymakers' attention to the possibility of killing two birds with a stone. You use the tax policies to raise revenue and also to achieve inclusivity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The redistributive leverage that we could have through our policies, as our tax policies have not been utilized sufficiently. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had an amazing time. I think you all give them a very warm round of applause for me. Thank you. Cynthia, I'm summarizing nothing. I'm that one works,
So like Auntie Esther, I won't even begin to or attempt to summarize anything that has been said, because I don't think I'll be able to even articulately talk about all the issues as our panelists have done well so diligently. Thank you so much. Before we go quickly, please allow me, I would like to just express our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for your active participation, the critical reflections that you have shared, and then the shared commitments that we've had a sense of in this room to strengthen our democratic and then governance systems. I especially want to thank our mama, Auntie Esther, for her continued support to our work. In fact, anytime we call upon her, she's available. She'll be like, Cynthia, me wo bibi kan. Do I have a choice? So thank you, Auntie Esther. We also want to extend our sincere appreciation to Star Ghana Foundation and FCDO. Auntie Sarah is not here, but we want to also appreciate them for supporting this important initiative. And to our distinguished panelists for their rich insights and then the thought-provoking perspective shared throughout today's discussions. At Netright, we continue to be committed to creating spaces for important discourse like this on women's rights issues and gender equality issues. And we hope today's forum has not only informed you, but also inspired you and then empowered you. And most importantly, we hope it has reignited a collective sense of purpose, a renewed commitment to organize, to continue to advocate, and then to continue to act. Thank you all once again for coming, and safe journey back to your various destinations. Thank you.
Unfortunately, there's rock band in my mouth. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to, not to take anything away from Cynthia, but say a very warm thank you to all of you who stayed. And to say that we're looking forward to the next steps. We'll pick up the issues, the challenges for education and engagement, and also the critical things that rose in all of our submissions to take our agenda forward. Thank you very much. God bless our homeland, Ghana. God bless us all. Goodbye. So what do you need?
Oh yeah, to get this out of the way.
What do you need?
You could just stand by.
Like this?
No, be careful with me. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Okay.